Let's do the damn thing.
Oh, you know what time it is. It's
It's time to take it to the Birdland. It's about to go down. Hope y'all ready. Yeah, let's go. Come and roll with me to the Birdland. Friends got to giving you the word, man. Any other BS is absurd, man. Sports talking, they give it to you firsthand. They can talk Terps, they can talk O's. Yeah, they both lit. That's how it goes. Baltimore squad, Ravens and Poe. Better tune in. Here gonna show. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS.
BS.
What's up, BSers?
What's up, everybody?
Fred and Joe C in the studio tonight. Just a two-man show.
Two-man show.
Appreciate you stopping in and filling in for all the guys, because apparently everybody decided
they're
to do
all
something
lazy
this week.
Lazy bums.
Yeah, everybody's got things going on this week, so you get Fred and Joe C. So I apologize if the chat room's a little quiet tonight, just because we don't have a producer over there to chat it up. But look, we've got the chat room right in front of us, so we see it. We'll try to bring up as many comments as we can as we go along, as we got a lot to cover on this week's show, man. The Ravens win again in the preseason.
Of course.
And we discussed who we thought stood out this week, and a couple of moves that they're making.
All right.
What?
Oh, you want me to read? My bad.
That's all right. No worries, Joe.
All right. Well, you read my line, and you said I was two.
Yeah,
That's where you messed me up there.
The team had to make some decisions. Like I said, some players returned to action, and rosters had to be trimmed down to 85 this week. So we will discuss that. But I know you're excited about the Orioles.
Yeah, they bounced back last night, and there were some interesting things going with the Orioles over the weekend. So we're excited to talk about that.
Interesting decision. So we got a lot to break down with that as well. But before we do, got to remind you, got to talk to you guys a little bit about that sponsor of ours, that team over at MD Crash, the guy we've been telling you about for years. Well, they changed, right? They're right now they're expanding. They're going through adding more lawyers and handling a much broader spectrum of cases now, still handling all your auto accidents and injuries at work, of course. But the team now at Bowers, Hassan, and Herndon can help you with family laws issues from divorce, custody, to even child support. If you haven't updated that number by now, I don't know when you're going to do it, but you should do it today. 667-220-6500. Text or call them anytime for any of your needs. Save the number now. 667-220-6500. Get the team at Bowers, Hassan, and Herndon on the case for you. Rough start, man. What the hell?
You're like,
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with that.
I was like staring at you, like, oh, what? I was like, you just have read mine. I was like, that's okay.
Right. No worries, man. Let's talk some Ravens, man. Talk some flock talk. Like I said earlier, the Ravens win their preseason opener over the Titans, 23-10. Extends their preseason winning streak to 21 games.
That's a
lot since 2016, which means.
Do you like the streak, or I'm kind of like just lose one and get it over with?
I don't think the streak means anything. It's preseason, right? I said, though, this would be the year that I thought that they might lose, only because I think what makes them so successful in the preseason is the preparation and the amount of work that goes into practices. Because when you hear free agents come over to the Ravens from other teams, one of the things that they talk about is just the amount of work that goes in, the day-to-day work, the practicing is so much tougher here than it is with other teams, right? And obviously this year they were taking a big step back with all the injuries and whatnot that they had last year. So I thought maybe this team would be a little vulnerable this year, but they handled business against the Titans.
I think they're going to win next week too.
You do?
I do. I mean, I don't like the streak. I just kind of like, all right, just lose one, 21's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of football.
But at the end of the day, what does it mean?
It means nothing.
Right. They could go 0-3 and then go, 16-0 in the regular season. Like it just doesn't matter. 17-0 now.
I think it's psychological for me. That's what you think. Because usually, they win the 4 or whatnot. And then you're like, oh, they're going to lose the next 3.
Right.
Something like that. But we'll see.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the game. We'll start with who stood out, right? For me in this game, I told you one of the big guys that I was looking to see, because everything had been hyped up in preseason. And obviously we talked about the loss of Hayden Hurst and not having a true receiving tight end 2. So my attention was going to go to Isaiah Likely. I wanted to see if the hype was real and what everybody had been saying in training camp was real and it was going to happen under the lights. And he did not disappoint, man. His ability, what I really liked about him, and it's the same thing I like about Mark Andrews. And Mark Andrews even said he's got a little bit of me in him. I think one of those things is his ability to find open space and come back to the ball. Like, he knows when he's covered and that ball is not coming to him, or he has a sense when his quarterback might be in trouble to come back to him or find that open space. That's not something that all wide receivers or all tight ends do. And I saw that in this first week, and the quarterbacks found him often.
They did. And how many times in the past have they said wide receivers aren't getting open,
right?
Aren't coming back to Lamar, aren't doing what Likely's doing. We need that. And who cares if he's a tight end?
Right.
Use him as a wide receiver. Just because I think that's an advantage for us if he's, I'm not sure his height. Was he like 6'2", 6'3", something?
I think he's 6'4".
6'4"?
Yeah.
There's your wide receiver that we all need.
And I think that is kind of what he is.
He got that twitchy move too. Do you see that one move? He juked the guy. I'm like,
he had
oh
a few moves in that one one possession. Maybe it was one move too many, but either way, what I liked about it was he knew where the sticks were. He made a move or two enough to get that first down there, which that's going to be critical for this offense when you're talking about moving the chains and getting the first down on third down and making that, extra couple of yards to get that. So I think it's big. And the other part of it is it looks like he's got very good hands. His hands are soft, that he catches the ball at its highest point. He doesn't wait for it to get to his chest. That's important. That's usually something that not all receivers straight out of college have. That a lot of receivers who just naturally let the ball come to them. But that was one of the things to me that stood out about his game, and I really liked what I saw.
No, he looked real good, and I'm excited for the tight end core.
Needs to cut down on the holding, though. That was the only. If I'm going to knock him for anything, he had a couple of holding calls.
But he's a rookie.
Right.
Rod Woodson said it the best. He goes, he had the 2 holding penalties, but he needs to learn how to hold and get away with it.
Right. Not
there's
be caught.
One way to do it, and there's another way to do it. And everyone holds on every play.
Absolutely.
But he's just got to figure that out. And I didn't see too much of this second guy tight end, the guy, the tall white dude.
Poljan?
Poljan.
Yeah. He looked okay. I still think the other tight end, what was his name? He's hurt right now. He was a rookie. They just drafted him.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
Kohler. He didn't play. He didn't play.
Okay, that's
he's
why.
Still dealing with an injury. So I'm excited to see what he is, because he's another pass catching threat. But we talked about wide receivers, right? And that for me is probably the biggest question mark on this offense is, what does this wide receiver core look like beyond Rashad Bateman, beyond, James Prochet, Devin Duvernay? What options do we have? There's been some talk about some of the guys, the undrafted free agents that they brought in, and, Benjamin Victor looked good in this game as well, who he's been around a couple years, just hasn't been given a whole lot of reps or opportunity. But I think the guy that stood out the most in this game, Shamar Bridges, another guy who's not really a burner, but he's a tall guy. Another guy that can go up and high point the ball, use his body for leverage, which we saw on that end zone touchdown.
Yep.
Yeah. So I liked what I saw him, in week 1.
Yeah, he definitely brings a lot more to the table than probably Prochet and Dumervay with the size, because they definitely need that. Those guys are both short.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing, but they're your slot guys.
Right.
And you have Bateman on the other side, which I think he's going to be a beast this year.
Yeah.
And he just needs a little help. I don't care if they put Likely on the outside.
Right.
I think that would work.
And honestly, I think you may see that because the Ravens don't have a ton of down the field options, right? And I know they've been trying to, especially in practice, they've been trying to get Duvernay more balls down the field, which we've heard some good things about him catching some deep touchdowns over the last couple of days, which is good. But they need somebody on the outside that can catch the ball. And if they're going to line up their tight ends out wide, I'm all for it. Because again, Likely is kind of on that, the way he's built, he's on that borderline.
Yeah, he's not really that. Usually the tight ends are bigger dudes.
Right. He's almost
like
built
Andrews.
a lot like a Darren Waller in a similar sense. And Waller's made a hell of his career, or, out of his career going to tight end from wide receiver.
Which still doesn't make any sense to me. It's kind of somewhat the same position, but maybe I think just his headspace wasn't correct.
No, he had a lot of personal issues that he was dealing with here in Baltimore. I think the change of scenery for him was huge for Waller. So that's a whole, unique case on its own. But I like Likely. I like Shamar Bridges. Like I said, Victor looked good as well. Defensively, I think had a few standouts more than the offense. The quarterback play on the offense was good. I think nobody looked terrible. I thought Huntley looked good. I even think the kid out of Oregon looked really good. So he was pretty quick too. Yeah, I was pretty impressed with him. and his ability to get the ball down the field as well.
I think he'll be a practice squad guy.
He could be. It just depends if the Ravens, decide to carry 3 active or 2 quarterbacks. But this could be a year that they just go to 2. So he could be practice squad. Just hopefully nobody scoops him up because you need him. But defensively, talk about rookies. The guy that I was looking forward to the most, and I said the guy I was going to be keeping my eye on the most in this game, is Travis Jones, the defensive lineman. Because when you got guys like Calais Campbell and Michael Pierce talking highly about a rookie, these are guys that are, good in their own right and that have been in the league for a very long time. And they're talking this kid up like he's legit and he's just got grown man strength and he's able to push guys around like nobody, like they've never seen. Like he's got just legit raw power and he's got technique. This early on in his career, that excites me because this defensive line unit as a whole is going to be deep and good.
Which they need that for success, because we saw in the past years when the D-line's not deep, it hurts everybody. It hurts the linebackers, it hurts the safeties, the corners.
Yeah.
That's good that Travis Jones is doing well. It kind of reminds me of Brandon Williams when they drafted him, just because I think he had some pretty high praise coming out. Smaller school in UConn was not very good, as we all know.
Yeah, right.
And the competition was probably decent, but the team just was awful.
Yeah.
So I'm excited too, just to see him like blossom. And it's all not on him either. It's not like he's by himself.
Right.
You got Campbell in there.
They've got an 8 or 9 man rotation of guys.
I mean, Matabike's third year in the league, but that's still like young, but he's also an older guy too now.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a couple years under his belt now, but he's a guy that kind of has flown under the radar this camp. Last year, you had some national people saying that he's going to be the next Aaron Donald and all that stuff. And he just didn't live up to the hype last year. I don't think he had a bad year last year. I think he was a little overhyped going into the year. Part of that is on Scott and I too. Scott and I really hyped up the guy and thought he was going to have a big year, but he didn't end up having a great year. But
I think some of that was a defensive coordinator too. I think he ran his time and had to go, even though I liked him.
Absolutely right. And to your point, getting that push, so one of the differences in Travis Jones versus Brandon Williams, because you made that comparison. So Brandon Williams was a big body, a strong guy, but he was a run stuffer. He was never much of a pass rush guy. Travis Jones has enough speed and enough quickness off the line that he can actually affect the rush up the middle, which is only going to require double teams, which is going to free up your edge rushers more. Justin Houston, these guys are going to have more one-on-one matchups, and I think their statistics and their ability to get to the quarterback is just going to go up.
I'd say the last time they had that was probably Haloti Ngata.
Yeah.
And that's been a long time since he's been a Raven.
So. Hey, listen, if we get somebody anywhere close to a Haloti Ngata,
I'm not comparing him to it,
I know, but I'm saying skill set
is probably going nuts right now. But
I love him. The kid is unreal, and this defensive line is exciting. I mean, it's got youth, it's got veteran leadership. Like I said, it's just got so much depth to it that there's not going to be a whole lot of letdown from one guy to another. They're going to be able to keep them fresh. So first quarter to fourth quarter, you're going to have guys in there able to make noise and able to make problems for an offensive line. I think it's exciting. And all that's going to do is benefit the secondary, because now the quarterbacks are going to be flushed out of the pocket. Quarterbacks
are going to throw it up for him.
They're going to throw it up for him. And we got news yesterday that Marcus Peters is back.
Yep.
Which I'm excited about. Marcus Peters back. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Staying in the secondary, before we talk the rookie, before we go to another rookie,
gotcha.
I want to talk about a couple guys that stood out in a positive way. Geno Stone, Tony Jefferson, 2 best safeties on the field in this game.
Geno Stone, he was drafted by the Ravens late, and then he was with the team, went somewhere else, and came back. He really put a name to himself.
Yeah.
Last night, and even last season too, he played very well. And Jefferson he came out of nowhere. He was hurt, and the Ravens got rid of him, and he didn't have anywhere to be. And he's just, I'm going to come to work every day. And Harbs brings him in, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Because I think they might have butted heads a little bit, but we need that. We need that backup, because you saw last year with all the cornerback depth,
right?
It was gone by week 6, 7. We were on 8.
Yeah,
string
we
number
had
8.
basically McDonald's workers out there playing.
I stopped counting after that.
Yeah, it was rough. But I agree with you. The Ravens are going to have some tough decisions that they're going to have to make in the secondary, especially at safety. Geno Stone, to me, he's too good to cut off of this roster. You can't not, because if you try to put him on the practice squad, somebody's going to pick him up. He's just too good. But he brings a lot to the field. And what I saw in this game was his ability to read and react and get into the backfield and tackles for losses. I mean, he was very explosive. He obviously had the one interception as well, which was kind of, I don't want to say it was a gift. You got to be in the right place at the right time for it. But either way, he had the interception. He able to get into the backfield and get tackles for loss, which was great. Tony Jefferson, he's a vet. He knows the defense. He's a good locker room guy, but more than that, in this game on the field, again, a very sound tackler. And that was one of the problems in the secondary, really. Definitely. With this entire defense last year.
Oh yeah, they couldn't tackle.
They couldn't wrap. They couldn't wrap up. They were more worried about punching the ball out or making it look cute or whatever. Things were just bad with the basics last year. This looked really, really promising, in my opinion.
I have one beef with him. The one long run, and I don't know who the running back was because they're playing second, third string on their Tennessee. He just went out of his shoes. Like, he was right there and the guy just blew right by him.
You know what might have helped him on that play?
Which kind of like shocked me because I was like, he's right there and he's a good tackler, but I have to dig him on that.
You know what might have helped him on that play is if he was wearing his glasses. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't.
No, he put a tweet out that he's like, I stopped wearing my glasses like 6 years ago and I put them on and holy cow, I can see so much better. I'm like, what?
Maybe you lost a contact.
How is this not a thing? Like, how have you not been wearing contacts? How have you not been wearing?
Funny.
Yeah. So when he came into the stadium, they do the whole, like, what are the players wearing? And they look at their wardrobes as they're walking into the locker room. He had his glasses on. He made sure he looked real to the camera. It's pretty fun. I love Tony Jefferson's personality, man. He's a good locker room guy too. He is. And that secondary needs that.
He reminds me of, not to switch to the Orioles, he reminds me of Odor for the Orioles, someone you need, someone that has glue.
Yeah. But beyond that, though, like I said, on the field, he can still play, man. I know he's a little bit older. I think he's 30 maybe at this point.
He's not moving like that. He's, 32 or whatever.
Right.
He is.
He doesn't. He looked good. Now, on the flip side, it was Kyle Hamilton's debut. It was his first game. So I'm 100% giving him a pass. And I'm not saying that he even had a bad game. The only thing I'm going to say is he took some poor angles. He missed a few tackles that he should have made. Yeah. Couple of like lackluster efforts on the tackle too. And that's something that I was like, I even talked to Ryan up in the stands about it. I was like, I wonder if like they're telling these guys like, just don't go balls to the wall. This
Probably
is a first round pick, blah, blah, blah. But in my head, I'm like, well, if you're going to like limit them on how they play, just get them off the field. Yeah. Why you have them on the field?
I'm actually kind of shocked that he did play. I was thinking
as much as he played.
I was going to think he might maybe a series, but I mean, you saw even with the Jets, their quarterback Wilson, he got hurt. I mean, and he played, I think like 2 series or even 1 series or something like that. I mean, they're trying to protect these guys and you can't always protect them.
Right.
But I think he was probably just told go 70%.
Right.
He don't get hurt, make some plays, make it look good.
Yeah, I think there could be that. We don't know. I mean, this was me just kind of rolling through my head because I was like, man, when I watched him on tape, tackling was never an issue. This is a guy that's 6'4". He's got size. Like tackling he was very fundamental. So it was kind of shocking to me. But I think with Kyle Hamilton, because they didn't end up trading Chuck Clark, right?
I think that helps them a lot.
They have 3 safeties at least that they're going to have to put in some sort of rotation. And they drafted Kyle Hamilton because of his versatility, because he can play free. He can play in the box. He can cover tight ends. He can, cover
pretty
the
much
slot
do it all.
if need. Yeah, he can. So I think the reason you saw him on the field as much as he was because they were just trying to see what he looked like in different packages, in different positions. And you don't see that, especially in practice. If they're being as limited as they are and they're not doing as much contact drills as they have in the past, this was their first like real sample size to see like if the game was just too fast for him or how he was going to read and react. And again, I'm not trying to talk down about Kyle Hamilton because I still think he had a very good game. He had an effective game. He had the fumble recovery and all that stuff. So it was good. He was in the right place. But the tackling needs to be improved. That is, again, a basic fundamental that frustrates me more than anything when guys don't wrap up and guys.
And you
make
saw that all last
tackles.
year, like you said.
Yeah, it was frustrating to watch, but again, they were McDonald's and Walmart workers out there just basically playing is what it seemed like because they just had so many injuries last year. The other thing, guy that you know pretty well, a PSU guy,
Yeah.
Jordan Stout.
Jordan Stout looked good.
Legit. Like, I watched him, and we got there early enough that I was able to watch him in warm-ups.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure, from my point of view, I saw him boom one between 75 and 80 yards, right? So he's 100% got the leg. I know
the guy at
San Diego State.
San Diego State booted like an 82-yard, and it was on ESPN. I'm like, yeah, but it was net 20 yards because you had to go up to the 20.
Exactly.
So I was like, you don't want that. You want him at the 2, the 1, the 5, like what Sam Cook used to do when he was younger.
But everybody hears that number and they're like, damn, this guy booted the ball 84 yards.
Yeah.
I don't, did they go with the wrong kick, wrong punter, blah, blah, blah. No. Why you drafted Jordan Stout is not only does he have the leg, but it's his accuracy. The being able to down the teams inside the 20, inside the 10 with ease. You saw that in his drills. He did it in the game, but in his drills during warmups, he was super effective. And one thing that I didn't realize until last week about him was he basically did it all the kicking responsibilities for Penn State.
Kickoffs, field goals. He can kick I think he kicked the longer field goals.
Okay.
I don't know if I can't remember. They had a couple different kickers at one point. But yeah, he can do all of it in case Tucker not that we want Tucker to get hurt or something, or all the COVID craziness that's been happening the last couple of years. You never know.
Right.
But he can do it all, which I think helps them moving forward. And having Sam Cook there, I think that's the ace in the hole with it. I mean, I was surprised that Tucker was kicking, because usually they bring a second kicker in there or whatever, and then we trade him for a draft pick.
Right. So to that point, that's where I was kind of scratching my head too, is because I didn't realize Stout had did all that in college. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at the roster. I'm like, they didn't bring their second camp body kicker in like they do every year, and we rinse and repeat and we trade him and make something out of him. Right. Like, why the hell didn't they do it? It's an awful lot of pressure to put on Tucker and wasteful, because Tucker doesn't need the practice. If anybody that doesn't need practice is Tucker. Well, but I didn't realize Stout could do all that.
I still think Tucker needs practice, because he would tell you, that one time I missed the kick, I should have made it, because I think he's a perfectionist with that, which all 100% kickers should be. I think it's going to be interesting, because I was watching his holds to see how they were, because we all know how good Sam Cook was.
Yeah.
So everything looked good to me. And what's going to be the next 2 weeks? Because I don't think Tucker is going to kick. So who's going to be the backup holder to
That's a good question.
Because I think they should, not that you want that, but it's good to have a backup to the backup. Like, who's the emergency catcher?
Right.
Scott. Just kidding.
No, you're absolutely right. They got to have an emergency plan.
Who's the goalie, in the stands of the hockey games, because all the goalies are hurt.
Right. But another thing, I mean, his hang time, his ability to get his team down the field is going to really help flip the field for this team, because it's not just he can kick the ball 60, 70 yards. The hang time, it allows his team to get down there and defend against it. You're going to see a lot of fair catches with this guy. Listen, that's one of the things about, Cook as he went on was he could still punt. And I still think this year, if he wanted to punt for somebody, he could be a very effective punter in this league. It's just over time, nobody beats Father Time, right? So he didn't quite have the hang time. That's where he started having to get kind of creative with his punts and his kicking and all that stuff. And he was still, again, very effective, and he could still be a top 5 punter probably in this league. But this kid being 22 years old or whatever he is, you've got at least a decade or more of leg strength.
Or you got another 16. Can you imagine another 16 years of Stout, following Cook? It's like, even when Tucker took over, when we had Matt Stover before, when he was here for a long time. I don't know how many years that was, but some in the chat room probably tell us, hey, it's this, it's that, you want that continuity with your special teams,
right?
With your long snappers, your field goal kicker, your punter, because you see how well that helps everybody.
Yeah. The other thing that I was looking at in this game, offensive line, Scott and I talked a lot about that, because there's still a lot of question marks on the offensive line, especially if Ronnie Stanley doesn't come back and isn't ready for week 1.
It's like crickets in that department. You heard a little bit, before training camp, and I haven't heard anything.
So your biggest question is, you got Juwan James out there who hasn't played football in basically 2 years. He hasn't played left tackle since high school. Has admittedly said he's uncomfortable playing left tackle. It's a big switch going from right to the left side. So a lot of focus was on him. And there was definitely some good and there was some bad. There was definitely footwork issues and technique issues that he just needs to work on and get better with. Again, it's a big flip going from one side to the next, but
I don't know. They're professional athletes to me. They should be able to do it.
They should.
They should.
But his effectiveness,
no, they get paid enough. They should be able to do it, Fred.
I'm not saying he can't do it. He can do it. But to be as effective on the left side as he was on the right side, it's not Madden. You don't just plug and play one side to the next side. No, it doesn't work that way. But what I like
his
about
rating goes from 78 to 74, maybe.
Maybe. But what I did like about him was, this team requires their offensive lines to be able to pull and get out in front and block for the running backs and block for Lamar, right? He has athleticism. That's able to get out. He's able to get, in front of the defense, make blocks. I saw that a couple times in this game. So that's a positive. Again, it's going to take time with him. Hopefully, knock on wood, Ronnie is available week 1 and we don't have to have that discussion, but I don't know.
I don't think so.
The way they're being hush-hush with it, I don't think he's going to be ready week 1. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And then Pepe Williams, the other rookie, played the entire game, which was kind of
that's good.
I think it was. You got to get him as much work as you could. Should have had a pick 6. I mean, easily should have had a pick 6, dropped it. Outside of that, he had a decent game. He didn't look like he was lost. It didn't look like he was getting burned in coverage. We had a couple cornerbacks. Seymour looked terrible.
Which he's been around for a couple years. I mean, come on, guys.
But he's looked bad in practice. He looked bad in this game.
Cut.
Yeah, I was surprised he wasn't part of the
sorry, Seymour.
The initial cut today, but it was pretty rough. But like we talked about, man, we got Marcus Peters back, right? So that's exciting. This is a totally different defense with Marcus out there, totally different secondary with Marcus because, again, turning the ball over and getting turnovers is going to be an emphasis for this defense. It was something that was lost last year because of the injuries, I think, and because the defensive coordinators, it's different, right? You got Mike McDonald in there who's going to put his own spin on this defense.
A young guy, which I think is good because he's hungry.
I do too. And Marcus Peters, that's what he thrives on. Since 2015, he still leads the league in interceptions, even not playing all of last year. It's crazy.
You definitely missed that last year, him and Humphrey.
Right.
I mean, you totally were watching the D. We're like,
Yeah, so it's exciting to have him back. You got a Darius Washington, who was another guy that was out with injury. He comes back, just another piece to that secondary. It'll be interesting to see how they use him because
is he going to play the nickel? You think?
So that's what I was getting ready to say.
I was wondering who was going to be the nickel since Tavon Young's gone.
Well, it's Kyle Fuller right now.
Okay, I forgot about him.
They brought Kyle Fuller in, so he'll start the season as the nickel. I wouldn't be surprised if they move Marlon a little bit inside and outside because he can play. He can
all
play
of them usually can play most.
It's going to match up. It's going to depend on who they're playing against, that kind of thing. But our Darius Washington, safety in college, has proven he can play the nickel. He's a little undersized, right? He's a little shorter, but he can play the nickel. And I think if he's going to make a roster spot on the 53 man, that's where he's going to have to show up.
Special teams, and
they just got so much depth right now at safety. That
we didn't even bring up Stevens,
right? Exactly,
who he can play all over, corner,
exactly,
safety,
exactly. But, so the secondary is in a very, very good place right now. Getting these guys back and getting them healthy, to have those kind of tough decisions is a good problem to have.
I do have a question for you. I don't know if you guys covered it. Sometimes I missed the show because of the kids. The Ravens created all that extra cap space recently with the restructure of Marlon Humphrey. Why the hell haven't they got a left tackle if they are not sure about Juwan James?
Well, couple things with that. So,
and like Lamar, if they sign him, will just be even more cap room.
It's a big if. That's a big if.
I think it'll get done.
I hope so, and
I'm positive.
It's like we don't talk about Bruno thing. Like
we don't talk about Lamar.
I'm not talking about it right now. But to answer your question, they were within hundreds of thousands of dollars of the salary cap, so they had to create space. And I say this, all the time when it comes to cap space with the Ravens. The Ravens always go into the season with a decent chunk of a safety net. So that way through the season, if there is injuries and they've got to sign a free agent, they have the room to be able to do that. So that was part of the restructure on Marlon. I'm not saying that they don't have the money to go out and bring in another name, but left tackles don't grow on trees. There's not many out there in free agency that are available that would be impactful to bring in right now. Now, come roster cuts, if there is a
the
guy,
famous roster cut.
yeah, once they get, once teams get down to 53 and they got to make those tough decisions, if there is an offensive lineman that becomes available, or, teams start talking, hey, we'd like to trade this guy instead of cutting him, blah, blah, blah.
Trying to get something.
Exactly, to get something for him. The Ravens, like we talked about, they've got defensive line, they've got some secondary depth, right? So they have some pieces if they needed to rob Peter to pay Paul type thing. They could do that, and they may, because that is a big concern. Offensive line, or they could use a little bit of that money for wide receiver, because that's also a concern beyond those three guys and Tylan Wallace.
I'd say linebacker is a concern for me too.
Inside linebacker, outside linebacker?
I think both.
Okay. Well, Roquan Smith became available last week. Apparently he's not happy with contract negotiations in Chicago, and I know a lot of people on social media
once they
were
jump
up in
on
arms
it,
about that. I don't know. Listen, Roquan Smith, top 5 middle linebacker in the league right now, and be a huge addition to this team.
Yeah, but it probably costs
you just can't afford it.
Yeah.
You absolutely can't afford it. So it would be more of a budget friendly guy if they're going to go middle linebacker there. Outside linebacker, it really just depends on who becomes available. I think they're in an okay spot with Odafe.
I guess Odafe, Houston.
And the big
Malik
question
Harrison.
is what happens with Tyus Bowser? How soon does he come back? He's another one that they've been real hush hush.
Yeah, we were talking about it right before the show. All the hush hush ones.
Those are the ones that make me nervous. But
don't talk about them.
But listen, Marcus Peters
came out of nowhere,
and then all of a sudden he was in a uniform and out on the field. I don't think any of the reporters even knew that he was going to be practicing anytime soon. So a lot of things and the Ravens have proven over history that they keep things very close to the vest. They don't talk
which
about
I think
things.
is the right thing to do, because
absolutely
it's it's their medical team. Doctors taking care of these guys, and it's the players too. Yeah, they want to be out there, but you got to make sure they're safe.
And the other part of it is, why give any other team an advantage in any kind of way? Why give them any unnecessary information to help them prepare? You don't have to if you don't want to. So I think the Ravens are smart in that. But those three guys, Gus Edwards, Tyus Bowser,
where are they?
And Ronnie Stanley.
Where's Waldo's?
We saw Ronnie running in the sand.
Yeah, I thought he had good reports or something, and he just disappeared.
Yeah, I still
maybe
think
he's still on the beach.
I still think
which beach was that?
I'm hopeful he's ready for week 1. I still think he's going to be ready.
I mean,
Gus
do you even play him if it's the Jets? I mean, like, the Jets just suck.
The Jets.
So do you just kind of
Jets matchup got very interesting over the weekend.
Yeah.
You know this, right?
I do know this. I heard.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about that. We're jumping all around here. Whatever. It's just a show. It's just a podcast. It's what we do. But so if you haven't heard, Zach Wilson ended up having a knee injury. Some thought it was an ACL tear and he was going to be done for the year. It doesn't sound it was as serious. He had a arthroscopic surgery today. So it sounds like it's going to be a few weeks, but nonetheless, he's going to miss week 1, which our old buddy, Joe Flacco, sounds like he's going to be the quarterback week 1 versus the Ravens in New York.
I think it'll be good because he'll sling it around.
I think it's going to be fun. I heard reports today that he threw 4 touchdowns in practice and whatnot, and his coaches spoke very highly of him.
He says he can still start. That's what I saw a quote like a couple of weeks ago. He said he still could start in the NFL. That's
the thing. I've never really questioned Joe's ability as a quarterback. I just think that he's very system driven.
Yeah.
He's another one that absolutely needs time. He needs protection because he is not mobile at all. And
at least not now anymore because he's older.
The Jets did just lose Mekhi Becton too, which is the big tackle for them. That's a big loss. But Joe Flacco is going to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And he kind of alluded to that in his interview without alluding to it. Because obviously the media is asking him questions and all that stuff. This will be the first time that he's got a chance to play against the Ravens since the trade.
They played Denver,
but he never played against the Ravens.
He was hurt.
Nope.
Yeah.
So this will be the first time that he gets a chance to play. They've got some weapons there. They drafted Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver out of New York.
Wide receivers.
They've got a bunch of backs up there that look good.
We'll see.
So
I don't know what their defense is going to be like, but
it changes things though. I mean, again, this is a home game for the Jets, so it's on the road. I still like our chances. I still think we're winning week 1.
Yeah.
But it's going to pull at the heartstrings a little bit.
I
see, as much as I love Lamar Jackson, I still got love for Joe, man. I always have love for Joe, and I hope he I'm sure in the Ring of Honor, once he
day.
decides to hang him up, like it won't take long for that to happen. John Harbaugh said in his interview, once a Raven, always a Raven, like he does with everybody.
Like Orlando Brown.
For it. Not that guy. That guy, Jesus Christ. But I don't know. To me, that makes this matchup more exciting. Zach Wilson obviously is going to be the starting quarterback for the future of that team. But just because it's the Ravens, it's the week 1 matchup,
Yeah,
Joe Flacco versus Lamar Jackson. I think it's going to be fun.
I think, especially because Lamar took over for Joe when he was hurt. So it was, you got that factor too, which we forget about. And then Lamar went on to win like 5 or 6 inning games in a row.
Right.
And Flacco's still on the sideline like, oh crap, this is my team.
Right.
So it will be very interesting. I think we'll win, but Flacco, I think, is going to give a good shot. He's going to go deep. I think he'll throw at least maybe 2 touchdowns. Maybe 2 touchdowns and a pick or something like that.
I'm cool with that. As long as Lamar throws 3 and we win the game, I'm fine with him throwing 2. He can throw as many as he wants. As long as Lamar throws 1 more.
He's still a gunslinger.
Or runs 1 more, whatever. I'm good with it. But it's going to be fun, man. It'll be interesting to see how the players react and interact with him too, because I think Joe, even though he was kind of like a ho-hum kind of guy,
he was a team guy.
He was a team guy, and I think a lot of people.
But is there still a lot of guys left from when he was there? I mean, I don't think there was that many. I mean,
I guess you're right. I mean, not a ton. More coaches.
Yeah,
left
more coaches.
Than players.
Cook, Tucker.
Right. Yep.
Harbaugh.
Marlin.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few guys, not a lot. You're absolutely right, but it's going to be fun. It adds a whole nother dimension to the Jets matchup. Yeah, for sure. So speaking of preseason and Ravens, it's on social media, and obviously
gotta love the social media aspect.
The Steelers historically have always been a wide receiver factory, right?
That's true.
Year in and year out, they end up finding these diamonds in the rough late in drafts. They end up being great. They let one receiver walk and they bring in 3 more to replace it. And they just every year it's like a cycle. They're just a factory with wide receivers. Well, a guy that I think a lot of Ravens fans were kind of clamoring for in the draft was we would have liked to have seen a George Pickens out of Georgia. On the Ravens.
He was a stud.
He ends up going
a couple of the Georgia guys, some of the DN dudes,
right,
big dudes.
He ends up going in the 2nd round to the Steelers, and he's killing it in camp. I mean, crushing it in camp. And this is with Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph throwing him the ball.
I was just going to say their quarterbacks suck. Man.
Right. So if he's doing well with those guys throwing at him, you can only imagine what he'd be doing if it's Lamar was throwing at him. So a lot of fans are up in arms with social media. Why do you waste a 2nd round pick on a guy like David Ojabo who's hurt and our need is a wide receiver and George Pickens was there and da-da-da-da-da. Listen, David Ojabo was a top 15 talent in this draft. Edge rusher is 1A, 1B up there with wide receiver as far as biggest problems on this team. So it was just as much of a need at outside linebacker as wide receiver is. I get George Pickens is crushing it, and I get that he's going to be an immense talent, I think, for years to come with them. But to get a top 15 talent in the 2nd round like that, to me, it was a no-brainer for the Ravens to make that pick, and I don't regret it one bit.
I agree with you. And it was like, why did they take Kyle Hamilton? He was a top 5 pick or something like that.
Why did the Ravens always do best player available?
Slid down and you're just going to go, no, I'm going to go with this guy instead. No, you're going to pick him, and then you're going to figure it out on the fly later.
Exactly.
And I think that's why they went up and got Linderbaum. Maybe he wasn't ranked as high, or 2nd round-ish with people, but they're like, this is the best center. We're going to go get him too.
Right, exactly.
So I liked it.
I do too. I think they covered needs. What was safety a need? Not necessarily a need, but it was a big upgrade, I think, in adding Kyle Hamilton. And having 3 starting safeties in the fold gives them a lot more versatility in that secondary. So justifying the 1st round pick is a no-brainer for me. And again, David Ojabo, a top 15 talent. You don't let that kind of opportunity pass up, especially when you have a big need at edge rusher. I love George Pickens, and it's going to suck to see him succeed in a Steelers uniform. But either way, I'm not changing that. If I could go back and do it tomorrow, I'm still happy with that pick.
And Ojabo is going to be hungry when he gets back.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be out to prove, something to everybody.
Right.
I think you might see him this year.
And not to mention, the coach that got the most out of him is now our defensive coordinator. Like, I think it was a no-brainer pick to have him opposite of Oweh for years to come.
bunch of Big Ten guys. I love it.
I love it. Two of the top
Even though
Big Ten
I don't really like
guys.
Michigan, but I can go Big Ten.
Right. I like it. So the Ravens had some decisions to make today. They had to get down to the 85-man roster by 4 p.m. They ended up releasing running back Corey Clement, who they picked up a couple weeks ago.
Goodbye.
He was a guy that, I mean, listen, he didn't look bad. Honestly, when he was on the field, he looked decent, but I think Justice Hill showed a lot more in this preseason game than I expected. He's another guy coming back. Which is
surprising because he hasn't, ever since he's been with us, he hasn't done anything.
Ryan earmuffs because he's not going to like to hear this. Doesn't like Justice Hill.
He's not watching. He should be working.
Yeah, right. He looked good. He can catch the ball. He's got a little bit of explosiveness to him. He knows the offense already. So all of that is pluses for Justice Hill versus Corey Clement. Corey Clement, I think, was just a body and a depth piece in case they needed him. But at this point,
I think that was more the body and depth because you had Gus and JK out.
Right.
I saw something on, I think it popped on my Facebook, that maybe the Eagles sign him again.
Maybe.
Just because I think Sanders got hurt. I saw he got hurt.
That could be. I mean, he's a good back. I think he can be effective. It's just we got enough bodies here, and I think he was low man on the totem pole. Exactly. They did let DB cornerback Robert Jackson go on Monday as well. That was no surprise.
Oh.
That was no surprise. They did release a quarterback today. They ended up letting Brett Hundley.
Oh gosh,
Brett Hundley.
I almost thought you were going to say Lamar.
Yeah, right. No, but so in this preseason game, like I said earlier, you got to see everybody outside of Lamar, and I was pretty impressed with everybody. And I thought even Hundley looked decent, right? But they were never going to carry 4 quarterbacks, and Hundley wasn't a guy they were going to try to stash on the practice squad either.
Because
I thought the kid out of Oregon, I can't come up with his name right now.
Something Adams, isn't it?
No.
Hey, Twitter,
chat room,
groupie chats.
Yeah, hit me up with who that guy is. I can't think of his name right now. The
Oregon
third quarterback. Oregon. I think he looked really good. He was very effective in that game. Tyler Huntley looked very good in that game as well. Still struggles a little bit with the down the field ball.
I'm a little concerned about that for being the second string. I really think they need to upgrade.
Right.
They said Brown.
Brown. That's right. So I'm okay with this, happening. It was more so the Ravens had to get to a number. And again, they
Anthony Brown.
Anthony Brown. That's it. Appreciate it, guys. I was confident that the Ravens were only going to carry 3 quarterbacks at max anyway. So it is what it is with him. Outside linebacker Trent Harris was put on the IR, so that officially gets them down to the 85.
Yeah,
number.
He was only picked up like a week ago or something. So
exactly.
Good pickup. Oh, there'll probably be injury settlement or something.
Now, outside of the game, another thing that fans I think buy into a lot. And obviously, a couple years ago, 2019, the Ravens were littered all over this list. The NFL top 100 started their countdown.
The top 100, baby.
Now, the way that these top 100 rankings are based, it's based off of the previous season, and then their fellow teammates and
coaches
and players.
No
all
fan
vote
vote,
this
basically.
Stuff. Right, exactly. So far, they're through the bottom 50, so 100 through 51.
Now, do you watch those?
I don't watch them, but I read the list.
Okay.
If I'm in bed and it's a rerun and it's on, I might have it on in the background just to listen to it.
He does.
But so far, through the bottom 50, only one Raven.
Justin Tucker.
Justin Tucker makes the list at 94. So his first time ever making the top 100 list. Yeah. And honestly, kickers don't ever make the list. The last kicker to make it was Vinatieri, which was back in 12.
Not even Janikowski made it.
16 maybe.
Pretty good.
Nope, not Janikowski. Or if he did, it was prior to Vinatieri. So they rarely make the top 100 list. It's literally the elite of the elite. But this is a kicker that set the NFL record last year with a 66-yarder in Detroit. Still the most accurate kicker in NFL history. He is Mr. Automatuk, right? Like we talk about, like he is, in my opinion, this isn't just being biased. I think he's the greatest kicker of all time. And he's still so relatively young. He's only 31 years old, I believe. He's still got another 8 or 9 years to just continue to build that resume. Right. So it's kind of cool to see him make that list because I think it's well justified.
I agree with you on that. I wish he may be maybe a little higher, but
Yeah,
you
he's
know,
on
I
it.
know it's a kicker. I get it. But he definitely deserves it. He probably deserved it in other years too. They're just too bullheaded to put a kicker on.
Right.
But you know, like we said, he does practice, which he needs. That's why he's the best. So he's going to keep kicking, and he's going to keep winning us games.
Right.
So James, we're not trading him.
No, we're not.
I know you said that a million times. We will not trade him. He just signed a long-term deal. So he's my kicker, and I love him.
Steve says they cut Brent Hundley, Fred, and kept the Brown kid from Morgan. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Right.
I just couldn't think of what the kid from Morgan.
We're not doing very well today.
Yeah, today it's been a rough one. It's been a rough one. That's all right. So he says, Scott says, Tuck is a goat. Hey, Scott, you should not be watching the show. Enjoy your vacation.
You should be drinking tequila and having a good time.
Nick says, is Tucker going into the Hall of Fame? I think that's without question, unless he fell on his face for the last couple of years.
I'm trying to think when the last kicker was put on in the Hall of Fame, but I would think like Vinatieri goes.
Yeah,
I think Janikowski might go.
Morton Anderson,
maybe that's the last one.
He played for freaking ever.
I thought Stover was good back in the day, but they kind of he didn't really have that. You know, he had a lot of the records at one point, and then you know the kickers passed him because they just keep kicking.
Yeah, exactly.
Scott, your seat feels really nice right now. I might keep it.
So Adit says, if we took Pickens, would we have taken Likely?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
I think we would have taken Likely. I don't think we would have taken Kohler. I don't think we would have taken two tight ends.
You wouldn't taken two.
Because I really do believe that they're going to use Likely in different formations and more out wide than a typical tight end does. So because we didn't draft a big body wide receiver to go downfield like a George Pickens, you'll see Likely used that way. And then Kohler, once he actually gets healthy, you'll see him into the mix as well. And they'll really have a good 3 to 4 tight end rotation. You can't forget Nick Boyle.
Yeah, you kind of forget about him.
But everybody is saying that he looks more athletic now than even before the injury because he shedded some weight. So he's not as bulky. Big dude, yeah. Right. Obviously, last year, I think he came back a little too soon. He was kind of a shell of himself last year.
Yeah,
when he came back.
But the year, as you know, as it moved on through the season, it was really high and it just went.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, maybe some of that had to do with it. Who knows?
It could. Not having Lamar out there obviously is going to affect it too. So they're going to have a really good rotation of guys at tight end. But I still think, like I said, I think if they would have taken Pickens, I still think they would have taken Likely, but I don't think they would have taken Kohler later.
I think we got a couple. I can't read those questions. I'm going to better get to the eye doctor. Scott was saying something.
He says, sup from bar in Siesta Key. Carrie says, hi. What's up, Scott and Carrie? Enjoy your drinks in Siesta Key. Yeah. The pictures are beautiful. I saw your Mountain Dew, hard, whatever the hell it was, the hard Mountain Dew. Look good with the sunset in the background. Yeah. Very dramatic. Look great. I hope you guys are having fun. Steve says, to me, Fred Likely is a receiver. They're not going to tell you they're going to use him like that, but I think that's how they're going to use him. That's what I'm saying. I think they can use him
they will.
Multiple ways. And that is one thing I will say about Greg Roman and anybody else that's ever come into this offense. They'll tell you his playbook is a Bible. Like it's not basic. It's not for the faint at heart. It
must be a pretty small Bible.
I'm hoping that vault gets opened up a little bit more this year. And
Are you sure there's a vault? Yeah, I'm skeptical.
I don't know what's bad in the vault.
Maybe one extra page or something. We'll see. Give me a break, dude.
We'll see. You know what's cool though? What I like, and even Lamar was asked directly, like, is he going to be more vocal and more involved in audibles and calling plays at the line than he has in the past? And he said he's going to. And even Greg Roman responded and said, yeah, I mean, we're going to give him a little bit more freedom and things like that. And if he sees something, we want him to take advantage of it, not just go with the play that's called.
That should be the next step for him. I mean,
that is.
We had the same conversations back when Flacco took over, and like he would never, audible and that kind of stuff. These quarterbacks have to do it.
Yeah. The elite of the elite do it. They do it all the time. If you think of the best quarterbacks, that's what they're doing. They're reading and reacting and audibling out of plays to create matchups that are more favorable for them. So,
or they know the play that you're going to run and they're going to switch it like that.
Right. Exactly. So I that excites me about the offense as well. So we'll see. Last thing I wanted to bring up, which I thought was just kind of cool because I saw it again all over social media today. Madden. I don't know if you're a Madden guy. Do you play video games at all?
I used to back in the day, but not so much anymore. But
So Madden over the years, especially the last few years, it's just been rinse and repeat. It's the same, essentially the same product.
10 years ago.
Everybody clamoring for help with franchise mode. It's the same problems year in and year out. Have the consoles gotten better and have the graphics gotten better over years? Yeah, but the gameplay is essentially the same. It's always been. So I don't get super excited about Madden like I used to. I was one of those kids, like, I was waiting outside a GameStop for the midnight release and waiting
with everyone else trying to get your copy.
Exactly. I remember one year I was so pissed off because we're out there waiting for midnight and it's raining. It's raining and there's probably 100 to 150 people out there waiting in line in this rain. And we've been out there for 4 hours. 10 minutes before they open, here comes this black BMW that pulls up to the front door, doesn't get out. Guy in the store comes out with a bag and you could obviously see through. It was Madden in the bag. Guy rolls his window. It was Juan Dixon getting his fucking. I don't know if I ever even told Ryan
that's
this
an awesome story.
Ryan,
that's an awesome story.
I was like,
Juan, come on, man.
I loved Juan Dixon too. I was like, this motherfucker.
Was going, ah!
Everybody was pissed because I can tell you now,
he should have stood out and signed autographs. Damn it!
90% of those people that were in that line, I don't even think they realized who it was. As soon as his window went down, I knew instantly who it was. I was hilarious. Like, that motherfucker! I was so pissed off. But either way, I was one of those guys.
Goodness.
And the reason I bring up Madden is because one of the screenshots that was going around was of an aerial shot of M&T Bank.
Yeah,
and you saw the end zone, and they actually have the Mo highlighted in the end zone, just like the Ravens did last year, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, they should have that. I mean, if they're going to replicate the stadiums, if the Ravens are doing that, it better be in there.
You know what's funny, though, and the reason I bring that up and why it's so cool is because in years past, I'm that guy that notices things in the stadium that they fucked up or they missed. Like, I've seen in years past, like, in 2022, let's just say, they'll have signs in the background that they didn't change from the year before that say 2021 on them. Little stupid shit that I don't miss, right? So it's like attention to details, even
because they're just reproducing the same game and changing the players or whatever.
Exactly. And even when we got the video boards up in the corners of the stadium,
a couple years.
It took them 2 years before they added that into the mix of
the let's go
little things, right? So it was cool to see that, pay homage to Mo. So
and he's in the NFL Hall of Fame,
right? Exactly.
So he deserves to be on Madden. And I'll tell you this: my Madden days, I used to play a lot, but the most time I had fun playing is in college. A house of like 4 or 5 guys. We all did, the fantasy draft almost. You got to pick your team with a computer, and we all played in the same league.
Okay,
so that was a lot of fun for me.
That does sound fun.
Except one guy really knew how to play and just beat the shit out of all of us. But that was a year I think I drafted like Urlacher, Lewis, and someone else, and I had like LaDainian Thomason, and that was my whole team. And like I had the best linebackers in the league because I had no idea what I was doing. He's like, "Well, you got to draft this lineman here and that guy there." I'm like, I don't have time for that.
I got the names that I know. That's pretty cool. But I still will buy Madden. I do it every year. It's just like habit at this point. And I probably play it like 5 or 6 times, then I'm done. So I waste $60 every year to play 5 or 6 times, but it's just it's an annual thing.
I don't think they have Madden for Xbox 360. That's the last game sold I
Your Xbox 360 still work?
It still works?
That's great. Oh man. All right. So like I said, we don't have a producer this week, and so we don't have anybody keeping notes as to who's in the comments
who the first
room.
Was.
As John Googs. John Googs was first in the chat room, so appreciate you tuning in as always. Steve, we see you, buddy. Stephanie Summers, appreciate you chiming in as always.
We know Scott was in there.
Yep, that's right. Let's see.
Scott gets a
Steven Severs. What's going on, brother? The real Steven Severs, please stand up. Scott Foster, of course, is in there. Jacob Paul.
Was that Ryan in there?
Ryan, I did see Ryan in there.
Hey.
Casting couch alternate to co-host Breakout Star. Talking about you. I like it.
Well, thank you. I don't know who that was, but I like them.
That was Ryan.
No, that was Ryan. Yeah, that's Ryan.
Donnie Meyer, appreciate it. Steven, okay, it's hard for me to read.
I know, I can't read it.
Steven, appreciate it. Craig Zero's in the room. Sean Carter's in the room. Eddie Hamilton's in the room. Sherry Reedy's in the room, as always. What's up, Sherry? Let's see. Adit, as always. Appreciate it. And all his takes are always great. He actually said Daniel Falele was good for someone of his limited experience playing in the first NFL game. I thought so too.
He's big. I mean,
dude,
he's
huge. He's 400
big.
pounds. I thought of anybody that would fail the conditioning test, it would be the guy that's like 400 pounds, but apparently he passed that with no problem. He looked good in this game. He didn't look lost.
That's good to
know. There's definitely some fine tuning that he's going to need to do. He did leave practice today a little banged up.
Early, I saw that too.
He left.
They said he walked off
on his own, so hopefully that's a good sign.
When they bring out the cart, that's a bad sign.
Yeah, exactly. Garnett, we see you in the room. Appreciate you, Garnett. Hadn't seen you in a while. Nick Short, as always, each and every week. Facebook user, the infamous Facebook user that just shows up in here, and I don't know why. I guess because he must have his account private. Who else we got in here? Is that it? Yeah, that's all I'm seeing. If I forgot your name, I apologize. Hard for me to read everybody.
Is that a Steve? Someone? Who's that? The orange one up.
Yeah, I mentioned him. Yeah, Steve from YouTube. Yep.
Okay, there you go.
Let's see. So Donnie says Stanley is a big question mark. 2 surgeries on the same ankle. What is his kick step going to look like? The ankle in question is his plant leg, so we'll see. I'm very optimistic at this point. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's a great take. I'm
not.
Even a banged up Stanley, even a 90% Stanley, I'm taking hands down over any other left tackle that we have on this roster currently. So yeah, maybe there's a little hesitation. There were there were fears that this could be a career altering, injury.
Which would really suck.
And we're still at a point where we haven't seen him on the field. So until we see him on the field, I'm still feeling a little concerned. I'm still feeling a little worried, regardless if it happens week 1, if he plays week 1 or not. That is what it is. But just him being able to play football again at a high level with that kind of injury, like you said, on his plant foot, that's a big question.
I mean, do you play him if he's 90%? To me, I feel like he's got to at least be pretty close. I mean, 90's pretty close to 100.
I'm not saying 90% healthy. I'm saying 90% effective of what he once was prior to the injury. That's what I'm saying. No,
I would take that.
You wait until he's 105% ready to go. But as far as his effectiveness, even if he's 90% of what he was prior to the injury,
still better than the Yahoos we've had out there.
Anybody that
Villanueva was just an awful.
Exactly, for sure. All right, man. It's time for some Bros, Bows, and O's. The guys, the team that you're excited to talk about.
Give me some O's, everybody.
Team now sits at 60-55, 22 wins away from a winning season.
Ooh, I'm counting down. We should have a countdown around here. Come on.
Maybe I'll add that in. I like that idea.
That's why they do not pay me the big bucks.
But it's just crazy to think. I mean, we're talking about
I can't believe it.
5 games over 500, legit in a playoff hunt right now, a wild card fight. It's just, this was a season that we had absolutely no expectations going into. Definitely had no aspirations for the playoffs. At least I didn't. I know you were probably the most optimistic, saying that they could potentially get the 500.
I said 500. Someone else, when we had that show with Scott, someone was like something crazy, even higher than that, which you better put some money on that. If you did that.
Right.
But
hopefully you did.
Everyone thought, 500 was aggressive. Most of the time, I think people were thinking maybe like 10 games under,
right?
Maybe 15, something like that. Not what they were before, but I mean, this is crazy. I have fun watching them now. Not that I didn't like watching them before, but I'm enjoying myself again. It reminds me of 2011 and 2012. Once we start beating our division, watch out. That's when you knew it was starting to click.
Right. You're absolutely right. And it's every game we're in. We're not a streaky team of 10 or 15 wins in a row, then 10 or 15 losses in a row. We've avoided those big losing streaks this year. Like last year, I think we had a couple of like 19, a 9 game and a 13 game. It was really bad. We had a couple of really long losing streaks last year. So my expectations going into this year after a 52 win season was like, hey, if we can get to 60, 65 wins,
something like that,
improve by 10 to 15 games, that's a huge improvement.
Everyone's going thumbs up, thumbs up.
Exactly. We're at 60 already.
I know that's crazy.
That's mind-boggling.
I saw something. It was on Twitter, and I should probably repost it. It was like, if the pace continuing, we'd actually be ahead of the Yankees at like 95 wins.
Right.
Which I was like,
Yankees are falling on their face right now.
Yeah, with them losing, and that would keep, which is probably not going to happen. But I almost fell over when I saw that.
It's unreal.
It just reminds me of the Buck days because I do miss Buck.
Second best team in Major League Baseball since the All-Star break.
After trading our two, all-star closer, our heart of our team, suck that national media.
Now, he did drop a tough series.
That's like for Drew,
I got you. Fuck Buster Olney.
Buster Olney, Bob Nightingale, you guys.
All those guys.
Suck a nut.
Like I said, though, they did drop a tough series over the weekend to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that was definitely a tough one.
That now puts them where they've lost the season series to Tampa Bay, Seattle, and Minnesota, all currently ahead of the Orioles right now in the playoff chase. The only reason I say that this is relevant is because they don't have that 163rd game play-in for the wild card team. Now it's all based on seedings, and if you're that last seed, it's a 3-game series against the third division winner, and all 3 of those games are away, are on the road, right? So that's why that's going to
be tough.
That's why this is going to be tough. But either way, it doesn't matter. Like the reason, like I understand some fans are up in arms about it, but just that we're having playoff conversations, that's even a thing,
I know, is
unbelievable to me.
Even if, say, you got rid of that third wild card, they changed, they're still right in it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, I still think, I'm not saying that they're going to make a push for the division, even with the Yankees playing as bad as they are, but they could take that top wild card seed.
That's in graphs. I mean,
100%.
Toronto's scuffling right now. I mean, we don't know what the score is. We don't have the game on. Someone should let us know.
Right. I think they were losing 2-0 before we went live.
Oh, okay.
They got up too early.
Oh, wow. Well, Toronto's in reach, Tampa Bay's in reach. And, I know we've struggled with Tampa Bay for the last couple years, which has been frustrating because I always think that to me, the Orioles should be better than them because their stadium sucks. They don't put the effort in as what we're seeing with like Elias. I mean, I know they have their system or whatever. I think
they've got a lot of young guys.
I feel some of it's good luck. They make these trades and it works out for them, which usually doesn't always happen.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got some lineage. I mean, you're talking Guerrero, Bichette, Biggio. Like they've got
for Toronto.
Yeah,
Mohan's been that dude's a beast.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we talk Toronto, let's talk a little bit about this race series because I'm not trying to overreact here because it's just been, like I said, so much fun watching this team this year. And I haven't questioned a lot of what Brandon Hyde has done with the lineups and matchups this year because honestly, all his decisions have really worked out. I mean, for the most part, they have.
For the most part.
But this weekend had me scratching my head a little bit with a few things versus the Rays. You win 2 of 3, and you win the season series, like I said. So this was a series of importance.
I think you wanted that one.
Yeah. You had some questionable lineups, some questionable people sitting on the bench that should have been playing. And you've got, Phillips in the lineup. You've got Nevin in the lineup. Listen, I understand that certain guys need rest. I get it. Like certain guys need rest and you got to give time off and certain people are struggling, but you got to put the best lineup out there
every day, no matter what,
to win an important series, especially like this. You got to put the best lineup that you have out there. I've absorbed Odor being in the lineup because I understand offensively, he's hitting right around that Mendoza line, right around like the 200 mark. But his impact on the field as a leader and the big hits, the game-changing hits, the clutch hits, that's something that you can't measure. And he's been very effective.
That's
all
not
year
in the
with it.
Analytics.
No, it's not in the analytics. But, just when you start thinking like, it's been a while since he's had that magical moment. Well, then the other day he hits that walk-off home run, and it's just not walk-off, but hits the game-winning home run. I'm okay.
You're
with
okay.
Odor being
I
in the,
agree
in
with
the
that.
lineup.
You're okay. I don't like it because, well, let me rephrase that.
No,
I like it, but I don't like it because he should be in there. But you also want to see that Gunnar Henderson and that Jordan Westbrook. But I think they're in a weird spot where they're going to just let it ride for another month to see where they're at. Like if they fall off a little bit, I think you're going to bring the prospects up.
We'll talk about them too, because That's it. We'll talk about the timing of it. It's getting to that point, right?
But to your point, Brett Phillips, we're talking Odor. Brett Phillips, I don't know why they traded for him. I don't know why he's in the lineup.
Nope.
He's your fourth outfielder or whatever, backup guy. I'd rather than play Ryan McKenna, which says a lot because I don't really like him that much.
Ryan McKenna has played.
He's played
out
better.
of his mind.
Yeah.
He's played really good, and I like. So, like I said, I wasn't trying to question a lot of moves. I wasn't trying to question a whole lot of moves that Hyde was making. So when I saw McKenna leading off, instant reaction is, what the fuck are we doing? Why is Ryan McKenna and you got Cedric Mullins batting eighth? I wanted to overreact to that.
Was different.
But then it worked. They ended up winning that game, right? So then again, Ryan McKenna, he's been hitting the ball well. He's been working counts. Like
he plays good defense. He's fast. He steals bases.
And when you got a guy like Cedric Mullins, who's been struggling against lefties and whatnot, you need a change. He still gives you that speed at the top of the lineup. I think he's got a 6 or 7 game hitting streak at this point going right now. So I'm not questioning that. But like you said, Brett Phillips, Nevin, these guys being in the lineup in a must-win series. To me, it was a must-win series. Didn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah, and they almost got a perfect game against them. I was watching it on the couch every pitch, and when Mateo hit that, I was jumping up at the TV. I'm like giving them the picture of the finger, going yes. And I was like, oh, they're gonna win, and then I'm like, all right, they didn't win, but I think that almost helped them in the Toronto. It should help them in the Toronto series because no one wants to be no hit or perfect game against. And part of that could be
you're in a playoff race. That shit is for like the beginning of the year,
right?
When your guys are just not into it or just swinging at everything, timing's off, pitching's better, whatever it is.
Now give credit. Now Rasmussen pitched his ass off. He pitched a very good game and kept batters off balance. But again, you don't put a B or C lineup together in a must-win game.
I agree with that.
That's where my frustration was.
I still couldn't believe that he had like 80 pitches going into like the 9th inning or something. I was like, it boggled my mind the way,
That's like Greg Maddux effective. Greg Maddux back in the day, he would pitch these 9-inning games. He would throw like 75 pitches. And you're like, how the fuck is that even possible? But that's just how effective he was, how good of a pitcher he was. But you mentioned Mateo, and I don't want to glass over Jorge Mateo in any kind of way because we talked about, Ryan McKenna and his development and hitting the ball better. Jorge Mateo going into this year, you knew what he brought defensively. You knew what he brought speed-wise because his speed is next level. It's game-changing
Especially in that last night, he had made that whole run himself.
Exactly. So you knew that's what you were going to get out of Jorge Mateo, and you sacrificed offense to have him on the field because of his glove, because of his arm, because of his speed.
His range, too. I mean, you're not even talking about the glove. I mean, he can get to
all of it.
Fly balls. He just, there he is.
Exactly. But he is very quietly over the last month and a half, 2 months, starting to really figure it out at the plate as a hitter.
Which is good.
He looks like a totally different player at this point. He had 7 hits in the series against the Rays. He had 5. He was 5 for 5 the one game. First career 5-hit game that he's ever had in his life.
They did have a position player pitch that game too, so I don't know.
I get that, but he didn't pitch all game. He pitched one inning. He had a very, very effective game. So I started thinking about this, and this is something. You know what? I'll hold off on this. We'll talk.
No, let's go. Come on.
No, because we got to talk about the big. We got to talk about the big news. The big news of the week. I think the most exciting news, right? That got social media buzzing about the Orioles even more.
The gas can.
The debut. DL Hall finally makes his major league debut.
I was pumped.
I was too. I mean, I didn't know when. I knew it was coming at some point, but he had been struggling a little bit at AAA with his command. Like
he was real good for like about a month and a half, and then lately, I don't know what's going on.
All year he's been doing this, and what it was in the beginning. He was just mowing guys down with his velocity, his blow by you type stuff. It's a guy that can hit 100 mile an hour as a left-handed pitcher. Well, then there came a stretch for about a month where he was struggling and he was giving up a good bit of runs. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. I wasn't watching every game, but I was watching the highlights and things.
Yeah,
but he was getting pulled early and had a lot of runs against him. Well, then it leaked out that apparently he was tipping his pitches.
Yeah.
So he figured out what he was doing with tipping his pitches. And then 3 starts in a row, he was dominant. Dominant. So I'm like, that's all it was. He was just tipping his pitches. No wonder you can hit 100 mile an hour fastball if you know it's coming, right?
Exactly.
So I thought, all right, well, he figured it out. Well, then the last 2 or 3 starts that he had in AAA, he reverted back, where he was losing his command. He was giving up a
Yeah.
lot of runs. And also I was like, maybe they'll wait till September to bring him up, but they don't. They bring him up for this series. So that was where I was like this battle. I'm like, I was battling in my head of like, you got these questionable lineup decisions that you're making, but you bring up DL Hall to make this spot start, which to me seems like you're being aggressive because you want to win this game.
Everyone I think was shocked that they actually brought him up because, when it reminded me of Grayson Rodriguez. He was like basically a pitch away from making the majors.
Right.
And you're like, yes. And then he's like, he's doing really well. Then he started struggling. It was weird. After the break, Hall had like an inning. I don't know. He pitched like a half an inning or something like that.
Right.
And they're like, oh, it's part of the program. You're like, what the hell's going on now? And then they just bring him up. And I made sure I was there to watch it. I was like, I don't care what I'm doing. We're finding the TV.
Right. Exactly. But here's where my emotions went with this thing, right? Was speaking about DL Hall specifically. I was down because I thought the last couple starts he had struggled. He wasn't going to get caught up till September. So I was down on DL Hall. Then I get excited because I hear he's making his debut. Now I'm on fucking cloud 9. DL Hall is here. This is fucking great. Things are going the way that they're supposed to go.
It's different than what the old regime used to do, is just hold the guys down there.
But then Hyder pulls the air out of my balloon. How do you bring DL Hall up and not start Adley Rutschman?
I agree with you. That's a bad move. That move is like when Ubaldo Jimenez came in for Britain in the playoffs.
Okay.
It really, I mean, you're right though. They have the continuity. They know each other.
Right.
You know what? Frickin' give Adley Sunday off. Who gives a shit? He's young.
It was a 3-hour difference. Like they try to
you in the head.
They try to justify it with the whole day-night game
bullshit.
thing. It was a 3-hour difference from what it would normally be. That had absolutely nothing to do with it. In my opinion, you want to do everything you can to make DL less nervous, more comfortable, and successful in his first outing. Because
I agree with that.
There is something to be said about the psychological game, especially for somebody who you're already dealing with all the emotions. You got family coming in, you got friends coming in, you got all these things that are already building your nerves up.
You're like, yeah, they've done it before, but never in that stage. All that kind of stuff.
Right? I mean, you could see it in his chest. You could see his heart fucking beating because he's got the meat and the gold chains hanging out
of my chest hair, women.
You can see his heart in his throat beating. Like you could tell he was nervous. So you want to eliminate as many things as you possibly can, but you put a catcher out there. I love Chirinos, and I think it was a great signing to bring him in because I think he's a good mentor for Adley. He's 10 times a better defensive catcher than anything that we had prior.
Yeah, all those guys
years.
Aren't even in the organization anymore.
Yeah, most of them aren't even playing MLB anymore at this point. So I love Chirinos, but to your point, these are guys that have worked together in the minor league system. They're friends, they're boys. Anything you could do to give him a pacifier and say, here, Adley was his pacifier.
He was.
But they didn't give it to him. They pulled
blankie.
that pacifier right out of his fucking mouth. Go fuck yourself. Do it without the binky. You're not sucking on this thumb. I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
It made no sense.
And then they said, all right, we'll see you in September. You're a reliever. And then you're like, oh, I'm back down here.
Yeah. I mean, Scott and I had talked about this with this is before the Orioles this is back in April, May, when we had no expectations of playoffs or anything. So we were having the discussion of when's the right time to bring up Grayson? When's the right time to bring up DL Hall, right? And Scott had the whole defense of the psychological game and bringing him up too early and all these things. And this is one of those things that I just thought was easily handled. To have Adley catch his first game and you don't do it, I'll never understand it. There's nothing, in my opinion, that can justify it.
I don't even know if Hyde actually talked about why he did that, but
yeah,
like you said, maybe he made some kind of excuse, but it's total bullshit.
Right. There's nothing you can do to justify it. In my opinion, the whole 3-hour what the fuck ever. It doesn't matter. Adley
These
very
guys
easily
are professional players.
He's 23 years old or 24 years old. There's no doubt he could have been
play
out there
every day if he could.
Absolutely.
Which you're not going to these days.
Right.
Hall definitely impressed me.
Yeah. So
the first inning was a little shaky.
Command issues.
I think he one run or something like that, a couple walks, but then the second inning, you mowed 3 guys right down. And then, you saw glimpses, which I think is good. I agree with you. It was frustrating. I was sitting there going, come on, man, you got this. And it just didn't happen for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if Tampa Bay had his number or whatever it was, or I don't think he was tipping pitches. Didn't look like it. It
No.
just, like you said, the command wasn't there, and just maybe it was the nerves. And
I don't know if
I have no idea.
I've watched a few of his games in the minor leagues. His mannerisms seem to be different. And I don't know if this is just because the cameras are better, so I can see more detail than things that I would see. I told you I saw like the heart beating in his chest. That's one thing. But even like the rocking on the mound, he seemed like he was all hyped up on fucking Mountain Dew. He seemed like he had
20 Mountain Dews.
Another level of energy out there. Like he couldn't calm down. Like he couldn't relax.
I think that's some of you talk about the mental game with that. I mean, we'll never experience that, but I really think these guys have the anxiety, the pure adrenaline, and to be able to harness that, even like if he would have got another start, to pure harness it.
Right.
It's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Adley has a way about him.
He just goes, oh, come here.
I got you, buddy. We'll get through this together. Now, Adley just has a way of making light of things. Like I said, the going out in between the innings and joking with the guys, like, because everything you hear about this guy is that he's not going out there and saying good inning every time. He's making jokes. He's cracking. He keeps it light.
Keep him
right?
loose.
Keeps him loose. And I think that would have helped DL Hall. But again, I don't want to harp on it too much. I liked what I saw. He 100% has the stuff. Him and Kyle Bradish, I think, have similar issues. They both have really major league.
They do.
Really
I do
good
like Bradish.
Stuff. They both have it. It's just the command. Both of them get a little erratic. Both of them get high in the zone.
Even Kramer too. Like I know from last year or 2 years ago, he was really good. And then last year was just a lost, awful year.
Right.
And now he's doing better. I think some of it is they got to figure it out. Not all these guys are going to go in and be like, I think Manoah for the Blue Jays, he's either a rookie or a year in or something like that.
Right.
Not all these guys are going to just get on the scene and have it.
Exactly. You gotta temper your expectations, understand the process, right? And understand the jump. Mm-hmm. How many players come up to the major league level and just never make it, right? We talk about 4A players. They will always be great in the minor leagues, but once you get to that next level, psychologically, something changes. The strike zone is more narrow. The strike zone is more accurate, supposedly. I don't know. It's very debatable, but there's a lot of factors into it. And like I said, I like what I saw. I like his stuff. I don't worry about him.
No, definitely not.
I think he'll be very effective. Now the plan is with him is they obviously sent him back down to AAA after the game. This was part of the plan. I think this was going to be part of the plan regardless of what happened.
I think that kind of got me by surprise. I don't know about you.
It didn't surprise me because you got to remember DL Hall's.
Why spot start him then? They just bring him up and put him in the bullpen. It made no sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
Come
I guess
on,
that's
Brad.
true. The spot start, I think they need it.
Let's have him come up and throw some pitches, and then we lose the game in the pennant race. Who really cares? And then we're not going to give him Adley, but then guess what? Go back down in the minors, work on your freaking command, and come out of the bullpen in September.
You're right.
Bullshit.
You're right. No, you're
Come
right.
on. You wouldn't have done that with Grayson. Grayson would have been here all the time. You didn't do it with Bradish, and Bradish is a lower prospect.
The thing is you're forgetting about DL Hall, though. He's coming back from surgery.
True, he hasn't pitched too much.
Well, he hasn't pitched too much, and he's on an innings count, right? So the Orioles knew before he was ever coming up how many innings he was going to pitch this year, and they weren't going to go over that. So he was already getting close to his limit for the year based on his injury. So they brought him up here. The spot start is very questionable just because of the way they went about it. I thought bringing him up, to me, like I said, showed aggressiveness, like they want to win this game, but the lineup changes, not having Adley, it just didn't make sense.
Why not have him in like an opener?
Right. I get it. 100% I get it. But the plan to take him down, get him some reps, and limit his innings in the bullpen, I might have said this on the air last week, or I might have said this in the group message. I'm not sure.
I'm not part of the group
You're
message,
not part
by the
of
way.
it, but maybe you get added to it. Maybe we'll upgrade you. Add you to the group message.
Ryan said go to co-host, and then
Ryan's going to have to go out of the group to make room for Carlozo now. So maybe that's what we'll do. Ryan just keeps it muted anyway because it goes off.
I have a friend group that's like 15 of us, and it'll just blow up all day. So I understand.
But
I'm with you on that, Ryan. Sometimes you're like, just leave me alone.
But what I compare this to, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but you remember years back when Tampa Bay was in a very similar playoff run, And they did something very similar with David Price.
I knew that's who you were going to say.
They brought him up, like he made a couple of spot starts later. Guy. They brought him out of the bullpen a couple of times. I'm not comparing DL and David Price because they're different level products.
That's the year they went to the World Series too, I think.
I think so. Yeah. So
I like that.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying that's exactly what it is, but it's a similar path, and worked out pretty well for David Price, right? So don't be all up in arms about it. Like, this is part of the plans. The inning limits was part of the plan. DL Hall will be back as long as he can show in the AAA for a couple games that he can be effective out of the pen, which I have no qualms about. I think he can be effective. He's got the speed. He's got the pitch repertoire to be able to be effective for an inning or two, right? He's got the stuff. So I think that would be a big addition to this bullpen heading into September and heading into that playoff push.
Yeah. I still don't like the plan though. I think it was a bunch of bullshit.
I do. The whole series was a bunch of bullshit.
It was weird. I don't know. That gets in my crawl. I feel like I'm Scott right now. Like,
what did you're speaking of the series? Sorry, this is completely off topic, but I wanted to get your opinion. What was your take on the benches clearing with the whole Chirinos thing? So what happened was, did you see it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Was that the what's his name? I'm trying to think of his name. It was the relief pitcher, right?
Yeah. So Chirinos was batting.
Was it Beeks or it was?
I forget the guy's name.
The dude is like 7'8", and he's like getting all mad, crying like a little baby
about something that the batter had no control over.
Yeah.
Chirinos was in the box and asked for time. The umpire is the one who granted him the timeout. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be mad at anybody, be mad at the umpire. I can ask timeout anytime I want to. It's up to the umpire to make the decision whether you're going to grant it or not. And then he's barking at him like it was, that was late. That's bullshit. That was late. He granted a timeout. I didn't grant it. I asked for it. I can ask for it in the middle of a pitch if I want to. Doesn't mean it's going to get granted.
You've seen it. I've seen it more this year than past years. And I remember, if everyone's watching the games, they grant time so late. I mean, someone's going to, so people
I've seen it quite a few times.
People are basically like in motion and they're like time. And they're like, oh,
right. I've seen it a lot.
Freaking just let him pitch. I don't know. The guy was so hyped up and acting like an asshole.
Who was the first guy you were looking for once the bench is cleared?
Rosarena, because that dude just kills us.
So Rosarena,
he kills us. I don't cut his knee out. No, I'm just kidding.
I went a totally different way. I was looking for Rugi. I was looking for Odor because that guy is always in the middle of something.
Because if you saw later, they had to cut a Rosarena going to second, and he was like all up,
talked to
and they
Odor.
Were talking to each other. Yeah. He probably didn't want the sucker punch. He's got a good right.
Rosarena, I'd like to see him get one across the fucking face. That guy kills us.
He pimped that home run. I think it was Sunday. I'm like, it killed me. But I'm like, you're such.
Yeah,
I gotta keep it clean. But he just acts like an ass. And
he does.
It's that new age of like pimping these home runs. And yeah, it's cool to pimp it a little bit, but like it's the first inning. It's not like it's the 9th inning or the 7th inning and you come back.
There are limits to it. I'm cool with it because I think it brings youth to the game. It draws interest from the youth, right? But there's situations for it. Like you said, early in the game and when you're down in a game big, there's no room for it. In a big situation, late in the game, a meaningful home run, the emotions get the best of you.
And boom, I totally get it.
100%.
But it's like, I think that was a carryover from the night before.
Yeah, but
they don't play each other anymore, so there's no more. I was wondering if someone's going to get hit with a ball or something, but But
the other thing with that is, too, it wasn't just an important series for us. They know the importance of it, too. So every run matters. So to me, that didn't bother me. But I agree with you that there are people that do it in the most ridiculous situations.
I think Tampa Bay's a little scared of us because they know we're playing better.
Yeah.
And they're not really playing that well. I mean, I
don't think there's anybody in the American League right now that wants to play the Orioles. And I'm not saying that. They're the best. They're the second best team in Major League Baseball since the All-Star break. And it's not about like, well, they've got one or two guys that are just fucking killing you.
Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole.
It's everybody.
Babe Ruth or whoever. They got like their stacked lineups or whatever. They have a bunch of guys that work well. I mean, I do like the Tampa Bay series. No matter what, they lost it. But there was a lot of production in the bottom of the order, which they've lacked so much the last couple of years. I mean, you might as well just had you, me, Scott, and James and Ryan go hit out there.
Right.
Because it just was awful. Yeah. Completely awful. But, Odor hitting, Mateo hitting, Urias hitting, I guess how you say his name.
Urias,
whatever. That is good.
Yeah.
We just got to get everyone clicking, and everyone's not going to click every night, but you just got to get that consistency of where, this guy's, brings them in, or the runners in scoring position, whatever it is, that big home run like Mountcastle hit last night.
That's what I was getting ready to say. So you mentioned Arozarena and how much we hate him. How much do the Blue Jays hate Ryan Mountcastle, man?
It reminds me of Mookie Betts that one year that did against us. Gleyber Torres. It was like every time he threw it to him, home run.
What's that guy that played for the Blue Jays? Grushek or whatever. Always Grishak, whatever.
Everyone's like, just walk him. Who cares?
He sucked against 30 other teams, 29 other teams. He was always a thorn in our side. Every matchup. It didn't matter if he was at home or
hit him in the foot or something with a ball and let him walk to first.
But you mentioned
someone said they agree with you.
What's that?
Scott said he 100% agree with you. I don't know what he's agreeing with you on.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, Scott.
Not to interrupt, sorry.
No, you're good. So you mentioned Mountcastle, right? It was good. I think he needed the Blue Jays in a bad way because
he's struggling.
He's not only struggling, he just looks lost at the plate. There's some times where players get in these funks where everything looks off. Like they're dropping their shoulder, they're pulling their head out, they're doing all these things. And Mountcastle was getting to that point. Ball is high and he's swinging underneath of it. Ball is low and he's swinging above it. Like he's not even, his timing's bad. Like everything was off.
Dare I say it was Chris Davis-esque? Like where he just looked
very
lost.
Short period.
Yeah.
He's not Chris Davis on a career path, but the thing with him is he's a very streaky hitter. So once he gets it figured out, he is a guy that can carry a lineup for a while, right? And that's why I say I think Mountcastle needed this series against the Blue Jays because I think it gave him a little bit. He knows
he can do it.
He's not an idiot. He knows how good he is against the Blue Jays, especially in Toronto. He gets that. So I think there's a level of relaxation for him that probably kicked in going into the series. Like, I always kill these guys. I'm going to kill these guys. He had a big game last night in a big win. It was a bounce back win that the Orioles needed to have, and they won it in a big way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Excuse me. With Mountcastle, I've heard some people think he doesn't try, he doesn't hustle, he's not attentive. That's the opposite.
He's just got a ho-hum.
Yeah, exactly. He's just kind of like, okay, whatever. And he's in there having fun. I can't imagine if you're up the plate and you haven't hit a home run in like a month and a half or something like that. That's got to go through your head because you're hitting them in practice. You're practicing on your swing, that you're doing all the cage work.
Right.
So he definitely needed this. And hopefully it helps with the offense because, only one guy can carry the team. If Santander's super hot as he was, like he could only carry so long.
Right.
And then you need that other teammates to, pitch in a little bit.
And this is kind of what we were saying. Like, this is why I say it's not just a Ryan Mountcastle, or it's not just an Anthony Santander that's carrying this team to success. Everybody is contributing in their own way. And to get the kind of contributions that we're getting from like a Jorge Mateo, Urias when he had a
those
nice
guys
run.
Are just bonuses because they play good defense.
Ryan McKenna, who would have ever thought that he'd be contributing? But he is. He's contributing in a big way. Once fucking Austin Hayes fell off a cliff and started struggling
I'm not sure
really
what's
bad.
going on with that.
I don't either. But Ryan McKenna stepped up and he's done well, right? So he's filled that void. It hasn't just been a complete loss of not having Austin Hayes. McKenna's bat has replaced that in some ways. Cedric Mullins, it's
hard to duplicate what he did last year.
Never will.
He probably won't. Maybe he's something close.
It was a career year.
He's never going to hit. It reminds me when Brady hit 50.
Right.
He's never going to hit 50 again.
Right.
He might hit, like, I don't know what he's up to now. I think like 12, 13. He might hit like 20.
Right.
But never 30.
No, but if he can steal 30 bases a year, if he can hit around 275, 280, that's good. He's had some up and
doubles, singles.
Right.
That's what you want him to do. You don't pay him in home runs.
Exactly. He's struggling this year against lefties. But he'll, I think that's something that he can work on. He can get it figured out. He's proven already that like he is a determined player. You talk about like work ethic and people questioning Mountcastle. You cannot ever question Cedric Mullins and his work ethic and his commitment to being a good baseball player. For a guy to give up being a switch hitter who had been a switch hitter his entire career and then have the kind of year that he had last year, it's not a fluke. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen by mistake. It's a 162 game season. If it was over a week or two, small sample size. He had a big year last year. If he can get back to being that 275, 280 kind of guy, I love Cedric Mullins and what he brings. But he's probably been, for me, the most consistent
Ish.
bat through the lineup this year, because you go through the lineup and you go through everybody. Everybody has had ups and downs, and some big ups and some big downs. It's just worked out where it's not been everybody down at one time. You've had when one goes down, another one goes up. It's just been this flow. That's how the Orioles have been able to be effective. And it's been that way even with the pitching staff.
Yeah.
The starting pitching staff. You've had Kramer go on runs where he's done really well. Fucking Watkins out of
like
nowhere.
I didn't think anything
Voth?
of this guy.
Who is Voth?
Because he throws like 60-mile curveballs. Like,
but he came out of nowhere. Basically, a lot of these guys are other people's trash
and
that have come in here and been very effective.
I think Elias and the team can sit there and look at their trash and know this guy's going to be good.
Right.
They see
analytics.
They see
things and develop, and the development is second.
Development's the key, because Orioles haven't had that in years.
Right.
And they sorry, I lost my train of thought there. With Voth, like, he can produce, you've seen it. You just got to tweak something.
Right.
And it's sometimes a change of scenery helps too. I mean, how many times in the past have the Orioles just gave up on guys? Freaking, they gave up on like Kurt Schilling. I mean, come on. Like who David Wells, there's
Glenn Davis.
They have a long list, everybody.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure the chat room can, pile in on some of them.
Jake Arrieta.
I mean, that guy was dominant for like 3 or 4 years. I mean, sometimes they need that. So I think for
Kevin Gausman even doing pretty good right now.
I always like Kevin Gausman, and he should be on the top of our rotation right now. I mean, that would be awesome.
Yep.
He could probably use the wall backwards.
Well, a couple of youth guys and youth options that could really make this team take another step. The guys that we've been talking about, we saw DL Hall from a pitching perspective come in and make a debut, but the guys that have been knocking at the door really all year, Gunnar Henderson, Kyle Stowers, continuing to tear the cover off the ball in AAA. I mean, there's not a whole lot more that they can prove in the minor leagues. So when is enough, right? We're in position to make a run, and these guys make our lineup better. You're not bringing them up to sit. You're not bringing them up to make your bench better. You're bringing them up to replace pieces in the lineup, to fill out that lineup and make a late season run. When is the right time?
I think it's going to be soon. I was shocked that when Trey got traded, Stowers wasn't up. And then they got Phillips. I'm like, dude,
Phillips is the biggest. That's where I was hoping you were going to go.
Like, McKenna can play the fourth outfielder. He's proven, and I think that's where he is. And he's a decent asset to have. When the Orioles were good in between 12 and 18, they'd get like, I think I'm going to say his name, Quinton Berry. You remember the guy for that play that Jones used to like speed. That's all you need. So,
LJ Hose.
LJ Hose, there's another one. That's the name. He had like a cup of coffee with, I think, Houston, but
he did.
I think the time is soon, but I don't know. They're winning. So are you going to mess it up? I don't know if they're going to, maybe September, but I really think that.
Let me ask you a point blank question.
Here's if there's an injury, they're coming up, but I don't think they're going to be brought up right this second.
Let me ask you a point blank question. I'm going to ask you 2 questions first.
Okay, 2 questions.
Does Stowers and Henderson make this team better?
Yes.
Answered question 1. Question 2. Like I said, you're not bringing him up to sit him on the bench.
Yep.
Start with Stowers. Who does he replace in the lineup, and who does he place in the field?
Stowers, I would say, goes in where Santander does. He's decent out there, but he just, I don't know. He's just something. He's got a great arm, and the defense is okay, but I think Stowers is younger, so he's got the legs.
Okay, I think counter to that,
I think you can move Santander to DH, and that's what I would do.
Okay, so if your idea is platooning Santander and Stowers between right field and DH, I like that. Mm-hmm. The other option for me would have been Austin Hayes, only because he struggled so much. It's not been a couple of weeks. I think he's still hurt, honestly. It could be. And if that's the case, then give him time to rest, because you do have these other options, right? Doesn't mean he can't be that fourth guy, right? McKenna's playing good baseball, and it's hard to pull him out of the lineup right now, but I think Stowers is a more complete player. He gives you not only average, but he gives you speed and he gives you power, right?
Mhm.
Something that Ryan McKenna doesn't bring. So for me, I like your suggestion, so I'm not turning that down. The other one would be thinking about Austin Hayes, giving him time.
I like Austin Hayes. My kids love him.
I love Austin Hayes too.
Scott's son Wyatt loves him too.
You got to separate
I
that.
know, but like he's still fairly young, and he's proven even in the minors he can put up good numbers.
I'm not saying he's done as an Oriole. I'm just saying for this late season push.
I would think if anything, he's probably going on the DL soon. If he's not, if he's struggling, something's going on because he doesn't look like the same person.
Okay,
out there. And then I would think that Gunnar would go at third, and Odor would come out of the lineup, and you put him on the bench, and then Urias or whatever you say his name goes to second base.
So almost, in my opinion,
almost.
I think Urias, he has struggled. I think he comes out. I think, yes, Gunnar goes to third, even though I think he could be the shortstop of the future. But Jorge Mateo's just playing. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in a minute. Don't go there yet. We'll talk about that. That's another question I'm going to follow up with. So I think Mateo is way too valuable to this team in all aspects. And we just justified why he's been such a good player for this team. So you're not moving him. I think Gunnar can play third. You put him at third. Urias comes out. You keep Odor in only because of what he brings to the chemistry and everything, the intangibles, right? And then maybe you platoon Odor and Vavra because you can't forget about Vavra.
He's got a good stick.
Vavra can do it all. So Vavra is that plug and play. I love his bat.
Yeah,
his
he's definitely shown a lot. I didn't know much about him, and he's like the 15th ranked prospect. I'm like, I'm like, who is this guy?
There is so much Brian Roberts in him in his approach at the plate. One of the things that I loved about Brian Roberts was his ability to work a count. He didn't swing at bad pitches. He made contact. Very rarely was he a swing and miss guy. And I see that in Vavra. Vavra doesn't swing and miss a whole lot. Even his outs are good, hard hit balls.
Yeah, that's what you want.
And that's what you want, right? So I think his bat 100% plays. I think he's the second baseman of the future, but Odor right now in this season for this run, I think you keep him at second base.
Yeah.
And Vavra is that, Scott'll like this, that Stevie Wilkerson, where you can kind of plug him wherever you need him. If you need to give him somebody a break and right.
Maybe you can pitch too. I don't really know.
Maybe. You never know. We'll see.
I like Stevie when he was with us.
But my point is, Vavra can be that plug and play guy wherever you need to give a guy
outfield,
a break.
Corner outfield, second base. I don't know.
He's already proven that. He can play the outfield.
Does he play third? I don't know if he plays third.
I don't know if he's got the arm strength for third.
Yeah. I mean, he has to. He plays outfield.
Well, I guess that's true. I've never personally seen him play third, so I don't know what that looks like. But second, corner outfields, I'd be good with that. So for me, that would be the way that I would kind of structure that thing if I'm bringing those two guys up. But the whole reason I'm bringing all this up is because this is a good problem to have as an Oriole fan and for the Orioles, but it's going to make for very interesting decisions down the road. Outfield will start there, right? Because we've already talked about it. Mullins, Hayes, Santander, McKenna's doing well. Stowers is going to be up. You got Diaz, who's I don't know. We'll see what Diaz is going to be. Kowser, Kerstad.
Kerstad was doing really well, I think, in low A. Then he went to Aberdeen, and he's done, I think, okay. I haven't really seen much pop up on like Twitter.
Nah, he's kind of struggled.
But the dude
over
hasn't played in like a year and a half or something. So
you got Hudson Haskins. There's a bunch of outfielders, and
there's only 3 outfielders. You know that, right, Fred?
There's only 3 outfield positions. You usually only carry 4, maybe 5 in a clubhouse. You got that 4th rotational guy, maybe 5, just depending on how you structure things. So the Orioles are going to have a lot of decisions to make in the offseason as to, because I fully expect Stowers to be the club out of spring training next year.
I agree with you. I think it's because this year's kind of weird. They're doing really well, and they might make the playoffs, which is kind of like what we didn't think.
Right.
But like coming into next year, they're going to be, those prospects will be on the team, and they might struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
But they're also really good. So I think very optimistic where the team's going. It just, who's going?
That's
a good
my
question.
point, and that's what I'm asking.
I think Santander is probably gone.
So this is part of why I brought that up, because I said this when it came to the trade deadline. I wasn't for trading pieces for the sake of trading pieces, because the return that you need to get for these pieces has to be significant enough to impact either the now in the future, or the future, right? You have to get pieces back that affect the future. I thought Santander would get traded at the deadline because of the plethora of outfield options that they have. I like Santander, but I think when you look at the outfield and the way it's structured, he is pigeonholed to right field and maybe left field.
He used to play left for a little bit.
He can play a corner outfield spot, but that's his pigeonhole. That and DH, right?
Well, maybe he's the next DH.
And that could be. Does he take up a roster spot as just a DH, and he can play situational? Which would be fine
with me, because he's a switch hitter. He hits for power. He's done better with walks this year. His average is decent.
Right. But you're going to have guys, like I said, maybe not in spring training, but at some point like this time next year, Colton Cowser is going to be at AAA.
He'll be at AAA next year.
Knocking at the door. If he has, because he'll start the year, in my opinion, he'll probably start the year at AAA next year.
Yeah.
So he'll be knocking on the door if all things go well. So you're going to be in a very tough situation where you're going to have to make some tough decisions. It'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, because you can't keep all of them, as we know.
Right.
And we were going back and forth to different people, not to go back to Mateo, but to me, Mateo. Mateo has earned his spot on the club and in the future. So, I would, you say Vavra a second. You know what? To me, it's Gunnar and Westbrook. Gunnar at third, Westberg at second, and then Vavra is your filling guy as your super utility dude. Yeah. Your Stevie Wilkerson, as you said. Those two guys have done so well. You got to play them. I know Drew's big on Robert Newstrom too.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what positions I think he plays outfield. Or
Newstrom?
Yeah,
he plays first base or outfield.
Where are you going to put him? You already got Ryan.
That's
Mountcastle at first. You're not going to get rid of Ryan Mountcastle,
and you're not going to carry 3 DHs.
Yeah,
right.
We've been in those days. You don't want to carry 3 DHs.
Right. Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like Jorge Mateo. I love all the intangibles that he had coming into this year. I just didn't expect this type of offensive production. I had literally no expectations.
It's kind of like a Jorge Lopez too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that way. Like you thought he would do good in the bullpen, didn't really know, and he's your all-star closer.
Exactly.
And they traded him away for 4 guys, and the one guy already moved up that they got.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. The Orioles are going to be in a good, tough position to be in.
They're going to be in a great position.
They're going to have to make
Not good, great.
Yeah.
Come on, Fred.
They got to make those decisions, though, and it'll be interesting to see once Westberg is here, once Gunner's here, once Vavra stays here, what happens to Jorge Mateo, because to me, he's increased his value substantially from the start of this year to now. You could.
There's going to be at least 2 to 3 guys get traded. Watch.
Right. They're going to have to, because again, this is the other reason that I wanted to bring this up too, is because you have this cluster of guys that already don't fit as far as the amount of people that you have, people that are here and people that are knocking on the door. You've already got that problem. Mm-hmm. Well, Mike Elias has publicly said, like, next year is it. Like, next year is where we get aggressive in free agency. We start spending money. We start bringing in guys.
When's the last time the GM for the Orioles actually said that?
Exactly.
And when Dan Duquette was here, he was Mr.
And Elias is a man of his word. Like, he doesn't say shit unless it's legit.
Duquette did spend money, but
terribly.
A lot of times they were dumpster diving too.
Exactly. So my question is, and we talked about this going into the offseason last year, was a name that got brought up, was a name that's tied to Mike Elias, Carlos Correa, who is also a shortstop, who rumors are is opting out. Elias supposedly already made an offer to him in the offseason. That was the rumor that went around.
Back. Yeah, I remember that.
Does that happen again?
That was like a hot minute that everyone thought he was coming here because he waited and waited.
So because as excited as we are, as we are for Gunnar, as excited as we are for Westberg, right? We don't know what that looks like yet at the major league level.
No, you don't. That's the problem.
Correa, we know what to expect. He's still super young.
Yeah.
He makes this lineup and he makes this team better right off the bat just by bringing him in. but you've got these other pieces. Like, so what decision do you make?
I think they just don't. I think if they're going to spend money, it's going to be in pitching.
They're going to have to spend it in pitching. I agree there.
I like Bradish. It's going to be Hall. It's going to be Grayson. But besides that, maybe John Means. You don't know if John Means is going to come back and be the same.
Right. Can he pitch a full year? That's a problem.
Well, yeah. But, maybe the Watkins is better in the bullpen. I don't know. But, Watkins, Evolve, to me, they're interchangeable. You could either have him or not have him on the team. So, I don't know. I said they don't sign Correa, but, who knows?
But so we just went through it, and this is the reason I'm bringing this up.
You're killing me here.
We went through all that. We went through we got all these outfielders, but this is probably the core group.
Well,
we went through all these infielders, but this is our core group. Where do you add? You're not adding catcher.
Yeah, catcher's solid for a while.
Yeah, we just went through the infield. Mountcastle.
Yeah, he's
Vavra, Westberg, and Gunnar. You're not adding to the infield, apparently.
Yeah, I agree.
We've got 18 outfielders. You're not adding to the outfield. You're subtracting.
I don't know what he's going to do.
Where do you add?
I have no idea.
That's what I'm saying with the Orioles being in a tough position because it's a good position.
Do you think? Here's a weird question. I don't know do you think they trade someone like Mullins?
They could,
because I like Cedric. You were the first one on him, and we all dogged him.
Whatever. It was just.
I know, but he's proven that he's a legitimate outfielder.
Should have sold on him last year if you're going to sell him.
I know. True. Gold Glove. What did they do with him?
I don't know. That's interesting. So Mullins is a whole nother thing because how many true center fielders do you have out of that group? Not many. There's a lot of guys that could play center, but what keeps Cedric Mullins out there is his defensive prowess. I know he doesn't have the great arm, but his ability to get to the gaps, his ability to track a ball, there's nobody out there in that grouping of 18 guys that we just talked about that can track like that.
To me, you don't need a true center fielder. I think you're wrong on this.
Okay.
Aaron Judge plays center field for the Yankees. The dude is 6'8".
He's fast though.
He's pretty fast, but Mullins is faster. I can give him that.
Okay.
He might be a little shorter, but you can plug guys in there to play center. McKenna plays center. Come on, Fred, you're wrong on this.
But is McKenna a day in's number one center fielder? That's who you're going to plug in the number 8 spot out there?
Right now he is.
Right now. For the short term, yes.
No, probably not, but I'm saying Colton Cowser, we just named
Colton Cowser's that's going to be the name.
We named all the guys in the minors. They could easily plug and play center field. If Cowser can't play every day, they'll play someone else.
Right.
To me, Judge is like a corner outfitter, to me.
Yeah.
But they don't have anybody else. So, he's pretty quick, but he's tall, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Something about him.
It just, I don't know. It's a good problem to have, but they're going to have to make some tough decisions. And I wanted to paint that picture because when you look at this clubhouse and you look at this starting lineup and you look at the depth, where are you adding? Who are you taking out?
They got some hard decisions, and hopefully
pitching 100%. Sign all the pitching.
Wild off season. That's all I got to say.
Absolutely.
I think they're going to move guys. They're going to sign guys. Maybe I'm wrong. And Mullins and Santander is part of the future. Maybe it's a Mountcastle that goes. You don't know.
Could be.
We have no idea.
Let me ask you this. Put you on the spot here. I thought I haven't done that enough.
You've done that enough tonight.
I'm going to do it again. This is what happens when you come in as a guest host. You get put on the spot. So I'm going to ask you this. We just talked about how this team has had a bunch of guys up and down, but there hasn't been that one guy that's head and heels above everybody else. Everybody's kind of contributed this year. So if the season ended today, who is your team MVP this year?
Adley Rutschman.
Adley. Okay. I like it. And you don't have to justify it.
Everyone
there really
knows.
doesn't need to be a whole lot of reasoning. I understand, some people will say, well, he didn't play the full season and he struggled with the bat when he first came up for the first month.
So did Julio Rodriguez. So did, I don't know, all numbers, superstars have struggled like that. You can name them. I'm not going to name all, but someone I remember, Trevor Story went out gangbusters when he was in Colorado. Then I'm sure he fell off that. It doesn't always work that way.
You think about what the individual contributions are, right? You got Austin Hayes, who if he was still on the pace that he was the first half of the year, hands down, he would be your MVP, no doubt. He would have been your all-star representative. He would have been your MVP, no doubt. But he's fallen off a cliff. Anthony Santander,
he's probably your best shot.
He leads the team in pretty much every offensive statistic, and he's done it the entire year. So he's been, if you talk about anybody's consistent, it's probably him. His average isn't great. His average is in like the 240s, 250s range.
Yeah, but that's not.
But everything isn't based on average. So he's got a good case. Adley, like you mentioned, best all-around player the last 2 months, I think. That fucking home run that he hit in Tampa off the rafters, I'm pretty sure if that didn't hit the rafters, it still wouldn't have landed.
That reminded me of when Chris Davies used to go down there and just bust home runs, and the ball would just be like
real monster. I hate the fact that those rafters were there, so we couldn't see where that ball landed. That was a moonshot.
Just need to get rid of that stadium.
I hate that stadium. I do too. So Mateo, another interesting case because, again, it's not all about the bat. It's team MVP. What does he bring in impact?
Yeah.
He's been there all year. He doesn't just have speed. He's had game-changing speeds. Think of how many times you've watched a game that he's gone first to home, first to third on plays that guys would barely make second on.
Middle, down the line that's foul, and he just runs over and grabs it. And
exactly.
Like nothing.
Right. So he's got a case.
I think that's a good one.
The bat over the last month, like I said, the last month and a half, he's been really, really good with the bat. In the bullpen, you've got Felix Bautista, who's kind of shined out of nowhere.
That dude, he's got
CNL Perez done great. Jorge Lopez was done great, but he got traded, right? He probably would have been in the running for it.
I don't know if Perez is signed for next year or not, but I could see if he is.
Get it done now.
I could see him traded though.
Maybe. We'll see. Especially if they're gonna have DL in the bullpen.
Yeah, because they have DL in the bullpen.
No, that's not gonna happen. No. So if you had to pick it, so it would be Adley for you.
I would say Adley, but I don't think it's going to be Adley. My gut would either say Santander or Mateo. I would agree with you on those two. I
love Adley, and I love what he's done, especially over these last 2 months. The first month offensively was a struggle, but to your point, everything that you said was right. Every big top prospect comes up and struggles. It's a big adjustment the first week, but his impact day one with the pitching staff,
the pitching, definitely.
And defensively as a catcher has been, you look at all the statistics, he's basically in the top 2 or 3 of every catching statistic.
They're on, I think, MLB Network, I saw something quickly. They're on the Adley train for Rookie of the Year, too.
Right. And so we brought up that last week. If you didn't see that, Scott and I had that
I don't think I saw that one.
So to that point, Julio Rodriguez is probably going to be your Rookie of the Year because of the stats that he's put up.
And the home run derby helped him.
But Adley is right there in the thick of things. Now, what happens is if Adley finishes in the top 2 of Rookie of the Year voting, he loses a year of eligibility. So that kind of hurts the team long term. If their plan isn't to sign him to a long extension.
I want them to sign him. Just Elias, get the checkbook out. Start signing these guys.
What's the guy in Tampa that the third baseman? He's not playing right now.
Oh, he's about to come back too. Wander Franco. They signed him to a long-term deal right off the bat. Acuna got a sweet deal.
And now
Albie's got a sweet deal.
But now how does that look to the team? Couple years into those deals, like it looks like a bargain deal for the team, but the player makes so much more money for those couple of years they avoid arbitration for that. For the player, it makes sense too, but the long term for the team.
Long term for the team. That's what
10-year deal, 7-year deal, whatever it is.
Why hasn't Mullins not been signed?
Yeah, well, to your point, he could be a trade piece.
Mountcastle's kind of older too. He should have been.
I would say he's older, but he should be in contract consideration.
I think age-wise, he's a little bit older than like Mullins. So. Yeah. I think that he should be coming up soon.
So maybe, Elias was kind of vague in some of his comments, but he said next year we're going to be spending a lot of money.
Maybe he's talking about signing his guys or getting them.
Could be. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe it's keeping internal.
I'm a little bit sad because I was such a Trey fan that not having him here for this sucks.
Yeah.
And he's basically riding the pine in Houston now.
I know.
Which is I don't understand why you trade for him. Play the dude.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me.
Who's that manager? Dusty Baker? Let's go. Just put him in.
Right, I'm right there with you.
No rules. No boundaries. 2 topics. 30 seconds each. It's time for the 2 2-minute warning.
All right, fellas, it's time for the 2-minute warning. We don't have somebody here to read questions, so we're just doing this all by ourselves. So
It's gonna
I'll
be a
read the
long
questions.
night in our compound here, Scott.
It is. I'll read the questions, and I'll let you start with the answers. So the first one, big fantasy football guy. You're in.
Yeah, I'm three leagues. That's enough for me.
So fantasy drafts happen all around the country now. Who is your favorite all-time fantasy football player? Who's that guy that helped put one of your teams that you can think of over the top?
Oh, this is such a hard question.
No, it's not. Come on, think.
Your
favorite all-time
player?
Fantasy player
would probably be, I don't know. Some reason Todd Heap comes to my mind. I don't know why.
Heap, really?
Well, like just the
Did
tight
he
end.
do something specifically for you?
I can't think of that one that, if it's baseball, yeah, I could name like Jacob deGrom and Roy Halladay that I kept for years, but like
So you named him earlier for me.
Okay.
LaDainian Tomlinson. LaDainian Tomlinson
I don't think I ever had
was next level in fantasy football. He was kind of him and Priest Holmes. Was another one that were like next level guys. I won a bunch of leagues with those guys. I'm talking like back in like when you kept fantasy stats down on paper, man. Back in the day.
I don't think I played back then.
So this comes from Ryan. Ryan wanted me to ask this. College football kicks off in less than 3 weeks. Who finishes better in the Big Ten East?
Oh gosh,
Maryland or Penn State, and who wins on November 12th in Happy Valley?
This is easy, Ryan. You should know this. Penn State all the way.
Now, why?
Why? Because they're just better.
Are they?
I do think they're better. I don't like their quarterback. Like Clifford's okay. I agree that Talia is way better than Clifford, but I think Penn State has a better team.
So the only thing that Penn State, in my opinion, has advantage on is that it's in Happy Valley.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be an intense, crazy environment, but Sean Clifford is going to be your demise. I don't think that they're going to be able to put up the offensive numbers against the Terps. The Terps are in a very critical year.
I agree.
They have to win a lot of games this year. They have to look good. And they're not going to have a better quarterback, at least anytime soon, than they've got right now in Talia Tagovailoa. And the weapons that he has around him,
receivers, I agree with that one.
They are going to put up a ton of points. I think they win. I think I'm going to say.
Are we going to have no handshake then?
Yeah, that would be great. A volume 2 of no hand. Oh, yeah, it's in our intro. Like, it's great. That was a whole Stephon Diggs thing. That was a whole fucking thing, but that was great. I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see. It's going to be fun.
I wish they would have moved on Penn State wise. They would have moved on from Clifford and just got like their younger guy in there.
Right.
But they didn't. So we'll see. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
He looked good in the beginning of the year. Then he gets hurt and just looks like shit.
Yeah. He's not it. They needed a better quarterback, in my opinion. But Joe, appreciate you coming by, man. Fred. It was a lot of fun. This was good, man. Just shooting the shit, talking Orioles, talking Ravens. It did, but that's okay. Whatever. It happens. Don't have Scott here to do his things. I know, right?
I was like, what's going on?
Just jump ahead of things. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. Sorry we weren't as engaged with the chat room as usual. We don't have the producer here. And I was just gazing into Joe's eyes here that I lost contact with the chat room. So I apologize for that. I'm going to go through the chat room and try to answer some questions that maybe are things that we didn't talk about in the after hours. But next week, we'll have a full house, hopefully. Scott will be back. Drew will be back. James is still down in Atlanta, which I saw somebody ask about James earlier. He's doing good, studying hard for his exam that he needs to pass for this new job. But he's doing well. He checks in every other day. So, James, hopefully you're out there and you're watching, man. Actually, I'm going to tell a quick story in the after hours about James. So stay tuned because it was kind of a cool story. He called me the other day. But we'll be back next Tuesday night, 7:30 as always. For myself, for Joe, for James, Drew, Scott, and even Ryan.
I guess Ryan, maybe.
I guess Ryan.
He got a question in, so he's still, he's still here.
He's still out there.
We miss him.
He only wanted to tune in for this question, that 2-minute warning question.
And as you know, Ryan, I do like the Terps too, so it's very hard when Penn State plays Maryland. It's hard for me. But when it's football, it's always Penn State.
I get it.
Basketball, I'm
Rock
a Terps
with your
fan.
team, man.
Yeah.
Fuck that billboard, though. We'll see you guys next week.
I love it.
See ya.
They were doing when you were out and they were doing all those crazy questions. And she says something.
Oh,
to me, I'm
God.
like, no more.
That was a weird time for Birdland.
Yeah.
That was a weird time.
Weird
It was weird questions. It started with like a would you ever or something like that I'd saw on like TikTok. And I was like,
that's your demise there,
Oh,
TikTok.
I know.
Someone showed me all these challenges and shit. I don't get it.
It wastes way too much time in my life. I need to just delete the TikTok app because once you go down it, like it's hard. Next thing you know, an hour's gone by. You're like, what have I done with the last hour of my life? But no, it started
Plus
with that.
China's spying on you, so that's why I won't download it.
But it started with that, and it was funny. Like I forget what it was. I forget what the question was that I asked the first time, but it was funny and it got a lot of reaction. We all talked after the show. We were like, "Hey, it's kind of like the slow season. Like
let's do
we
something.
can interject some fun or whatever." And then it just went like 5th grade lunchroom. It got like real like immature and real stupid. I was like,
no one wanted to answer the questions because they know like their wives.
Exactly. Mom might be chiming in. Like,
sorry, Mom.
It was a weird time for Birdland. But so I do want to share this story. So I thought this was really cool. You know, we appreciate each and every one of you guys that tune in every week and support the show. And I know there's a lot of people that are in the chat room or that watch the show that don't necessarily interact, that don't necessarily chime in the chat room. I know that happens. I can just see it in the numbers. But James calls me and he tells me this story. So he's in this class. I don't know exactly how many people are in their class, but I picture this like, you know, you're walking in, you're in this training room, you've got tables that you're assigned in, you've got your like folder, you know, and whatever. And in opening the first day, they're going around the room and introducing themselves and all that stuff. Well, James is kind of a casual, I guess, dress code or whatever. He's in there with whatever he's wearing, but he's got an Orioles hat on. So, you know, he introduces himself and da-da-da-da. Come to find out, this guy that's in his class, he's like, "Are you James Carusi?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Man," he's like, "I watch your show all the time, Birdland BS." And this is a guy that's in Indiana.
That's awesome.
Like a guy, like, listen, I understand that there's Oriole fans out there and there's Raven fans all out there. And this goes nationwide. I mean, I look at the numbers because we see analytics, talk about analytics. We see analytics and it shows you like what states people watching, what countries even people watching.
What's the farthest country?
Furthest country is probably Peru.
Peru? Oh, wow.
I think was like the furthest one out there that I've seen. But it's just cool that like, you know, that could be VPNs too.
Yeah,
people
you don't
banging
know.
off of another, you know, whatever. But yeah, so this guy, I think his name was Andrew or no, Austin. Austin was his name.
What's up, Austin?
Appreciate you. If you're watching out there,
chime in sometime.
I meant to say something earlier, but I just got lost in this guy's eyes and I completely forgot to talk about it. But I wanted to make sure that I brought it up. So what he said
We're getting a little handsy around here. We'll watch it.
So what he said is his father was a big either Ravens or Orioles fan. He was one or the other. And so I guess that kind of started him into, you know, that. And somehow he came across the channel and he's been watching the show since Scott and I started the video stuff.
Doing it live.
He's never listened to the audio podcast. It's all been visual. Yeah. He doesn't chime in the chat room or anything like that, but I just thought it was really cool.
Now they're classmates, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's just a small world, man. It's crazy. But again, we appreciate each and every one of you guys.
Maybe he gets a guest appearance and we get James to call in one time.
Yeah,
right?
man. He actually, James called me after that and put him on speakerphone. So I got a chance to talk with the guy and all that stuff. And I don't know, it's just kind of a cool moment. You know, it's like, we do this for the fun of it. But the interactions that we get from you guys is a big part of that fun, right? It's I don't know. It's just cool. It's cool that it goes way beyond.
You don't realize you don't realize it.
I'll go to Ravens games and people run into me and, "Oh, I watch your show." Da, da, da. I kind of expect that because it's Raven fans or it's Oriole fans. It doesn't happen often, but like, you know, every now and again, somebody will come up and recognize me from it. I get that. But to see that we've got a reach in Indiana.
Someone even recognized James and down in Georgia.
Exactly.
You know?
Like that's just, it's crazy to me. But so let's flip through here real quick.
Scott said that was a great story and he called him too. Scott, what are you drinking right now? We're rating the liquor cabinet.
So let's see. Goog says Tomlinson, dude was insane.
Someone said something bad about Penn State.
Penn State will fucking suck this year. It's Googs. And get their ass whooped on November 12th. Like, listen, Googs and I and Ryan, we're all big Terp fans. Usually Googs is pretty realistic, though. He'll tell you, like, when, hey, this isn't a good matchup for us, or whatever. So I like the confidence, Googs. You can always rely on it, man.
No, Googs.
I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout, but last year, so here in Maryland, we were in that game until Dotson went off.
Dotson was, I was so mad the Ravens didn't draft Dotson. I was
and
dying.
now he's with the Commanders.
I know. Yuck. Talk about like career killer or like just trade me now.
Yeah. Terry McLaurin signed a long-term deal there, though. It's just mind blowing.
I don't know.
But anyway, so we had a shot at that game until we just couldn't cover Dotson anymore. He went off, and then that was the end of it in like the end of third quarter. Might have even been early fourth quarter. I think you're going to see a similar matchup.
Something close. I could see reverse.
Because we have so many offensive weapons. Who are you going to guard?
I agree. I'm not too. I know they had
our
a couple
offensive line, all coming back. So Leah's going to have more time than usual.
He's got to be better though, because sometimes when you watched him last year, he just was throwing the ball and you're going, "What are you doing?"
Decision making was tough at times.
He's a junior this year, right?
Yeah. But statistically, he's broken pretty much every passing record last year at Maryland, and he's got more weapons at his disposal this year. He's got his best weapon in Dante Demas coming back fully healthy. I mean, add a guy like Jacob Copeland to the mix out of Florida.
I would think that maybe Maryland's got like 2 first-round wide receivers on their team right now.
I think they had 3 or 4 NFL guys. They have 2 first and second rounders.
Okay.
First or second, because wide receivers, some drafts, because quarterbacks, especially this coming year, there's a lot of really top level quarterbacks.
They'll push them all down.
They'll push wide receivers down the board. But I think first or second round, you got 2 guys that could definitely go that in Demas and Rack. I think both of those guys can go.
I'm not too familiar with the Penn State's D-backs, so they lost a couple guys, but we'll see. I mean, I think college football starts in like a week or 2.
I hope they put Chop on his fucking ass for leaving Maryland and going to Penn State. Now he's on this fucking billboard, and I got to see his face. Chop. I hope they put him on his ass.
I wonder. Well, that's one thing that concerns me with Loxley, at least, is that he's bringing in all these. You guys were hyping up all their linebackers, and I'm telling you, you're not linebacker. And you're like, and none of them are even there anymore. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, that's the one thing that like Loxley talks a good game. His record doesn't really show for it. I'm not saying that he's a bad coach, but for whatever reason, it's just not. He's in a tough division too. If he was like, maybe
if we were in the Big Ten West, we would be dominating.
Maybe in the MEAC.
MEAC, get the fuck out of here. You at least could have said go back to the ACC. Jesus, the MEAC. No, but here's the thing. So Locks to get those guys. I understand what you're saying because it is disappointing to lose Brandon Jennings. We see that Penn State too.
It's like it's a revolving door with these guys, but at least for them, a lot of those top-notch recruits they had that one year are all gone.
I know, and that's there are some guys that I think are going to shine bright this year at linebacker. I don't think we're as decimated as some might think. Mm-hmm. There are some guys that I still wish were there. I selfishly wish Chop was still here. I still wish Brandon Jennings was still here.
I really wish that the Chance Campbell never left. I don't know why.
Chance Campbell was
I think he got drafted.
So he didn't get drafted. He's on the undrafted. He was with the Titans. So in that game, I didn't even mention that.
The Cabot Hall guy. I was talking to.
You had Chance Campbell, you had Sam O, and you had Chigaconquo.
Oh yeah, I saw that
playing
on Twitter
for the Titans.
And the whole team showed up, and everyone's like, "Yeah."
It was pretty cool. That was a cool moment. That's actually why Ryan and the family went to the preseason game, was because they wanted to see the Ravens, and the tickets were absolutely cheap. It was like $10 or $3 a ticket. You can get preseason Raven tickets. You can get for nothing.
Why do they even sell them? I mean,
I don't know. People just
give it for free.
I know, but on StubHub, if you're going to list them on there, you got to list something as a price. So you'll see them on there for like literally $3. People just try to basically give them away. But anyway, I like this matchup. I think it'll be a close game, but I really think the difference maker is going to be the quarterback. Okay. Leah is a better quarterback than Clifford.
I can agree with that.
The offensive line will give him more time than he even got last year coming back, as long as they're fully healthy. And then all the skill guys that they have, running back, wide receiver, tight end even. This team is loaded.
Who's their tight end this year?
So their tight end this year is Corey Dyches, who was tight end number 2 last year. He's that like kind of very similar to Likely in the sense that he could be a big wide receiver
Gotcha.
or he could be a tight end. CJ Dupree, I'm hoping he makes a big jump from year 1 to year 2 as a sophomore. He's the one they labeled Baby Gronk. Super
Baby
strong.
Gronk,
Chig Okonkwo said, as a freshman day 1, he was the strongest tight end of the group as a freshman day 1.
Okay.
Like, it just goes to show how strong this dude is. So
he just doesn't have the other intangibles.
He's been a little disappointing as a receiving threat because he was actually a very good receiving threat in high school. So his first year was a little struggle with that. He was block first. That's what he was. So I'm hoping you see his game as far as a receiving.
If you had a Baby Gronk on your team, I would take that.
Absolutely. I'm not saying he's going to be Gronk, but that's just what they labeled him. What they did. He's got the personality. He's got the crazy personality. He's jumping in the pools in the training room on videos. Like he's that wild kind of partier type guy, but he's built like him too. But like I said, there's a lot to like about this team. The biggest question mark with this team is going to be the defense. They lost a lot of guys in the second.
Last year, they seemed like they got crushed the defense.
Yeah, they lost a lot of guys in the secondary to the transfer portal. They've got some guys that are going to play.
He got drafted.
You got a lot of guys to the draft, right? Tareeb is still there. So that's, our cornerback 1 is there.
Yeah.
You got some young guys that are going to come in at safety. You lost Jordan Mosley as well. That's an underrated loss in the safety room. So there's definitely question marks on the defense. Terp's going to have to put up a lot of points.
Yeah.
But they've got the offense to do it.
That's good.
Yeah.
For you guys, I guess. But
I think they can, we've talked about this. I think they can win 7 games, potentially 8, looking at the schedule.
To me, they should do that.
Right.
I think so.
That's the
and
7 is the expectation.
There's always going to be one of those ones where they should have won and they didn't, and then they win one when like they had no reason to win.
Right.
But I don't know. The division is so tough. I really do hate that Penn State, Maryland, Michigan State, Michigan, and Ohio State in one conference. It's
ridiculous.
Bullshit.
It's ridiculous.
And not that you're like, oh well, you should just play the top, beat the best and all that kind of stuff. But you look at the other side and like Wisconsin walks through the freaking, they didn't even have to win their regular games and they could win half of like their other, division games and they make it in. It's bullshit.
I agree with you.
But it'll be interesting once they add UCLA. And
so I was going to ask you, what do you think? Do you think they go divisionless? Do you think they restructure and go divisionless? Just one big conference?
I mean, the SEC doesn't, they have divisions. So I'm going to say no, but they're going to have to restructure it somehow because you can't. SEC
is adding guys too. So, adding teams too. So
I don't like it, honestly.
What? The movement?
The movement. Like you're talking about like their big addition was for East Coast was Maryland and Rutgers. And then all of a sudden now they're all the way on the West Coast.
Yeah.
It's just, they talk about travel. It messes up all the other sports too. Like imagine the Terps baseball. Like, and I fell in love with Terps baseball this year. I mean, they were fun to watch.
They were.
I was rooting for them. I was hoping they were going to make it far. I mean, they didn't. But you're going to fly out to like the West Coast and play those 2 teams. I mean, that's nuts.
I agree. I think travel logistics is tough. Maybe not so much for football because football is once a week. So football, it's not.
Yeah, but they talk about like spending money. Well, you're spending more money traveling all that out there.
You are, but you're making a lot more money.
True. It's all about the money on
and that's
TV
what it
deal.
is. That's what it is. That's why a lot of teams are getting out of these conferences and going to the Big Ten and going to the SEC. It's just because these TV deals are absolutely insane.
I could see them add 2 more probably because that would put them up to, is it 16?
That would put them at 16 because they're 12.
I could see them do it, especially if the SEC, they're trying to follow suit with the SEC and the other conferences are falling behind.
Right.
So
that's what I'm saying. Ryan and I have talked about it. It's going to be 2 power conferences.
At some point, do you just make them no conferences and just forget really football should separate from all the other sports. Like you keep your, whatever, ACC, basketball. Okay. Duke, North Carolina, just say Maryland was still in there. They're all, for basketball, they're all ACC. And when it comes to football, you play whoever you want. I mean, stop this bullshit. You know what I mean? Like just get rid of all that. If you're going to, you have super conferences, but what is that going to do? It's just like you're beating up.
It becomes too hard to rank because
it comes watered down to me.
You got what 300 teams that were Division I football teams, schools. So if you have conference based football, how do you separate the teams that are 10-0, 9-1, 8-3?
Exactly, and they're not
30 of them.
And they're not going to be playing each other.
Yeah.
So like your top dog Alabama, if it's 20, 20
That's why
teams
I
or
say
whatever,
conferences still have to exist. That's because of
I don't
that.
know.
That's my opinion.
I don't like.
I
I just don't like how they're going to these super conferences. I just keep it the way it is. I could see like some teams like, the smaller schools want to move up and add, and then they move around or whatever. But like this craziness of like the Pac-12 not being around, I mean, that's nuts.
right. So Goog says,
what's Goog say?
He's got a lot to say in here.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
probably just me, you, and Googs at this point. He says,
is that Scott too?
Yeah, Scott's in there. He says, the expectation was to be divisionless even before USC and UCLA were joining. Right. And that's what I'm saying. I think there's nothing been written in stone that it's going to happen. But I think for me, everything that you just said about Wisconsin and everything you just said about how Maryland is constantly looking up the ladder at Penn State, Ohio State,
which I want them to do well.
Right.
So,
but if you put Maryland in that Western Conference, they're a top 2 or 3 team every year, in my opinion, on that side of the
it'd be like sticking the Orioles in the AL Central.
Right, exactly. So I think divisionless conferences is going to be the way of the future, especially as these mega conferences.
But like, how big
happen.
do they get? That's the real question. Because like
they could go 20 teams.
If they're going 20 teams and they're all not playing each other, which is like crazy.
I know.
Which is like, what's the point?
Right. I agree with that. It makes for some tough decisions, but I think that's ultimately what's going to happen. I think you're going to have 2 mega powers, one mid-tier third conference in like if the Big 12 and the Pac-10 join together to make like a third power type conference, they could do that.
When are they going
to?
When are they going to? To me, when are they going to stop pulling all the other sports into it? Just say football is separate. Like to me, that gets in my craw more than anything. That these teams are just getting dragged to a different conference. Just,
right.
You could still get the money out of the Big Ten now, TV deal for the whole school.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't think that you can play in multiple conferences depending upon sport.
True. But like if you're going to these super ones like that, how are you going to have super conferences for they're going to have to redo all of college athletics.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying so. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
I mean, if you think people don't think about that, but it really does. I'm not even basketball. Like, could you imagine 3 super conferences for basketball? That would be crazy too.
Right.
But like, to me, I'm looking at like lacrosse. I mean, lacrosse isn't have it.
But football is always going to have the power because of the money they bring in. That's the problem. But basketball is right up there too. I mean, they bring in a shit ton of money too, but the other programs are just going to have to figure it out because they're going to be making more money.
Yeah,
because of these conferences.
Maybe they don't really care and just want to make more money.
I really think that's what it comes down to. When you think of like these schools and trying to keep up with the Joneses and trying to have better facilities to attract better players and to make more money, you get that money by boosters. But if your school isn't good, nobody's going to be boosting. Nobody's going to be giving money. So you got to get it from the conference. You got to get it from these TV deals. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it is.
Yeah. I guess we'll find out. We'll see. I don't know.
See. All right, guys, we're going to sign off for the night again. Appreciate you tuning in.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week again.
Follow me, Vito Spumoni.
That's right. Good job, Joe. Appreciate it.